I sure hope that won't be too noisy. I just thought about that. I'm hoping this isn't going to be too noisy. Like just hearing the laptop. I've got my good mic here, so we shouldn't be hearing a whole lot of the background noise and the craziness. But we shall see. We'll have to let me know. Hope everyone is well today. Sorry, I'm just making some last minute adjustments here. All right, hope everybody's doing well. I'm aware that she who has decided to call someone a rapist has made a response, and we will get to that. However, I do want to go over this conversation with Kyla first. I feel like it's actually it actually kind of makes her entire response as Tilly's very even more so kind of infuriating, in my own opinion. That's just me. Hi Theo, hope you're well. Hey Tater, how are you? Welcome in, welcome in. Let me know, is the sound all right? And can you hear my laptop? You as well, Theo. Thanks so much for coming in, dear. I hope you're doing well. Hope everybody is doing very well. Hope the sound quality is decent. Thank you, Theo. Appreciate that. And you haven't even heard the laptop? Amazing, because it's magnetic. My mic is, so it's on the laptop. So that's great. I'm doing good, Theo. Thank you. Thank you so much. Pardon me. I'm still very allergic to life right now, so you'll have to excuse me. Instead of prattling on for some period of time, I'm just going to go ahead and get right into this because our actual conversation is about an hour, and I'm going to leave the live chat enabled over here as well, so we can see what's really going on. And I know I'm going to have commentary and stop it a few times, and then I'd like to react to something else at the end as well. So, I'm hoping to be able to get it done swiftly and still have a little time before I go get my daughter. Maybe, possibly. I'm doing all right. Thank you. All right, Theo, we'll see you soon. Thank you for stopping in. Yes, Tater, of course. We always appreciate you around here. Thank you. And it was a great conversation last night as well. If y'all are not subbed to The Potato, I highly recommend you do so. He hosts great panels. We had one last night for like 6 hours. It was a little bit wild, but it was really great. We're going to go ahead and get started.
It's just different when girls I don't know. Girls are just nice.
Uh-oh. What happened?
Nice. It's fine when guys like me. Just always had an easier. Okay, Leah.
Okay. I'm pausing this just for one moment because it's seeming to, I think it reloaded, and so it's kind of not caught up yet, so it's going to do that jumpy thing. So I'm just letting it load for 2 seconds. Just give her a second here. Of course, Tater, glad to do it. Are we catching up? We're starting to catch up. All right.
Like me. Just always had an easier. Okay, Leah Bobia is here. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. Okay,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound. It's okay-ish. It's okay-ish. Let me just check your. Yeah, it's a little bit muffled, but it's okay.
Muffled. Weird. I have a headset in because I'm driving. So,
Yeah. Yeah, all good. Okay, so very quickly, just because I don't want you, because I know you're busy and you got kiddos and stuff, do you want to quickly talk about some of your concerns?
Well, yeah, I said, I get into Andrew thing in just a minute, if that's okay, or the Tilly thing, or whatever you want to call it. But the reason I said the whole thing about me not personally being a black and white person is because, sorry, I probably cut out there for a second. The reason I said what I said about not being a black and white thinker is because some of the things you were saying was making it very obvious to me that that's where you were going. It's almost like I called that ahead of time, and then 2 minutes later you said everybody's such a black and white thinker, right? It's almost like I wasn't just assuming things. Like I've watched a lot of your debates and I've seen your premise, I guess, or your idea that people who tend to disagree, or people even who take a hard line on something and do say X or Y is wrong firmly with no nuance, that must mean they are incapable of nuance. And I don't think that's obviously very fair, right?
I
You
don't
could
think
be
I've
a
ever said
person
that.
completely.
I don't think I've ever said somebody who takes a black and white, that's someone who makes like a strong claim X is wrong or Y is wrong is incapable of nuance. I would typically want to interrogate it.
And see, right? No. I'm not saying you said. Here begins the I must have put words in your mouth, right? This is something we're going to see over and over again in this conversation, which is increasingly frustrating. If you heard what I said to her, I have watched quite a few of your debates. I've seen you interact with people, and it seems to me as if you believe, and then I went on with my claim, which was basically that if someone disagrees with her, they're incapable of nuance. And the reason I said that is because what was happening before I had called in is there were a lot of people in the chat that were asking basically what in the world is really going on with this whole Tilly and Andrew situation, trying to dig in a little bit. She was going back and forth with them, and she kept like saying things like, well, it's more nuanced and there's nuance. And literally I put in the chat, not everything is black and white, but not everyone is also a rigid black and white thinker. And swear to God, not even a minute later, she said, why are all these people coming in with these black and white attitudes? Why are people so close-minded coming in here today? Blah, blah, blah. Something to that effect, right? And it was like, but Leah had a premonition and she was correct. It was just crazy because of course, I know that that's how you think, right? Anyway, back to the point is that she said that 2 seconds later. And so I was trying to point out to her, like, listen, just because someone takes a hard line and says, no, in this one situation, I don't believe there's even an ounce, a modicum of nuance, not one, does not mean they're incapable of seeing the nuance in other situations or they are a black and white thinker. It just means that in this one situation, they don't believe there's nuance to be had, or at least not enough nuance, quote unquote, to make a difference, right? But of course, she had to strawman me 2 sentences in and say, I didn't say that. Well, no, I never said you said that, right? You would never admit to that, just like you likely would not admit to many of the things you actually think, other than the wild and crazy things you already do admit to. It's just a thinking process that you have. And that's undeniable at this point because you already proved me right. Said that. I'm saying I knew where you were going with your opening right this second, but kind of things you've been saying in this stream, like people think so black and white, people have no nuance, etc.
Yeah.
Lead me to believe that because someone either disagrees with your stance that something is right or wrong, or because they see no nuance in this one situation, they're incapable of nuance, right? And I see this
I would
a lot.
I wouldn't say anything about my content suggests that, right? Like I'm somewhat known as like the good faither. Usually if somebody disagrees with me, I'm going to assume probably more than I should that they have reasons for why they would disagree. And usually in most debates and conversations, I somewhat interrogate that. I'm not always perfect. There's definitely some times where I'm more testy and impatient than I should be. But I think by and large, I present a pretty good model of trying to be patient, trying to understand why somebody disagrees with me, and seeing if they have reason or merit into why they disagree. So you do believe that there's a case, at least that someone could make, that this is wrong, not amoral,
not the situation with Tilly, speaking on Andrew, what I mean, that there could be someone that could at least believe in their own heart and be justified. Whether they could convince you of that or not, since you're personally involved in the situation, that's highly unlikely anyway, right? But whether they could
Well, I'm
convince
not
you or
personally
not,
involved at
surely
all.
there's
I'm not personally involved at all in this situation. Like, I was just the
Wild.
medium in which it happened. I
Right.
haven't said anything about, like, I'm not involved in this situation.
This type of person is the type of person that thinks if they say things out loud, they can magically make them come true, right? And this is so wild to me. Like, for you to really sit on a stream and say you are not involved in a situation, like it or not, you literally helped create, that you are 50% a part of. Because here, let me just, everybody keeps asking what coulda, shoulda, woulda she done, right? Or what you coulda, woulda done if you were her, right? And she even asked me that, and I only got, I think, 2 sentences in. We'll see in a second, before she interrupted me again. But to answer that question for many people, including her, like, what would you have done? It's really simple, right? Even if this was somebody, if I had somebody on my, show, I have this show, right? And I have somebody on and they're a guest and they're speaking on someone else, which, by the way, I I know it may not seem like it from my last few videos, but I'm typically not the type to speak on other people when they're not around. These are public figures, so that's a little bit different, right? But regardless, we have somebody on the show. Somehow, for some reason, we get into this whole topic of someone else, right? And we're discussing them. Even if this is somebody I vehemently dislike, right? If I also know that person, at least to some degree, and or have some type of business relationship with them or some type of professional relationship, and this person that's on my show goes on to accuse them of being a rapist, I don't care if I'm like, quote unquote, IRL friends with that person, close with that person. I really don't care. If I know that that's a lie, or at least have strong suspicions that it's a lie, or that they at least have no evidence to prove it's not, I'm going to stop them right there. I'm going to say, whoa, whoa, whoa. I feel like you're going hard in the paint right now, and you have no justification for the claims that you're making, right? And likely I would end my show right there, which is surely not something that Kyla would have wanted to do, because that would not be advantageous to her bank account, right? However, at some point you have to decide that your morals are the most important thing. And for me, my morals would not allow me to platform someone making wild accusations at someone else and just continue the conversation like nothing happened, right? Let alone feed and kind of like spoon feed and like under the table give her like ad hoc justifications for said accusations. To me, completely wild, right? But in the very least, I would have said, like, you can't say that. I mean, surely you understand that, right? Like, we cannot just come on Al Gore's internet and label somebody a rapist in the year of our Lord 2026. That's not what we're doing, right? That's bare minimum. So this whole idea that she was just completely uninvolved somehow, wild, incredibly, just at face of value, untrue. She's the one who invited Tilly on to have this conversation. She's the one who allowed the situation to happen. Like, it was her that sparked the fire, basically, and basically did nothing to put it out. So it's just so crazy to me.
I mean, when I say involved, I mean, like, you were there. This happened on your, well, I don't know if it was your stream, but
it was on my stream. It was my stream, but like,
no, I'm not. Also, just FYI, really, really quick, I'm not sure if I had said it before, but I had not actually watched the stream before I had called in. I had seen like longer clips, because as soon as she does her lives, apparently she puts them behind her paywall. So I wasn't able to watch it before. It's a whole thing.
I'm not involved in any like meaningful way.
Right, like a lawsuit or anything, right? No, yeah, that's not what I'm trying to claim. I did not say involved, I mean like physically, like you were there, right? And I get that if you're physically there, involved, emotionally involved in any way whatsoever, or this person, is close to you, not saying they are, or you shared it, whatever. There's many reasons you could be biased, right? Just like all the Andrew fans who saw that clip were like, what in the entire hell? you know,
what way would I be
those people
biased? Because in the moment, my reaction was to
right.
listen to her, query a bit about it, and then tell her my experience, which softly pushed back on her characterization of the situation.
Yeah, as
Well, I mean, I just think generally our biases kind of inform
But what would my
all of
bias
it.
be
I mean,
in this situation? Pro Tilly?
it could just be to agree with her or like her as a person, right?
But I disagreed with her like live in the moment, right?
I mean, you said that a couple times on stream. You did say, well, hold on. Let me preface before I even say that to say I have not watched the entire live. I have only seen, now I have seen longer clips, like 5-8 minutes, not just 30 seconds. But I haven't seen the full con. So possibly you have. But from what I've seen, all I really saw you say was like, well, I didn't experience that. I did not feel unsafe.
Yeah, because she was
And you
accusing them.
said-
Well, she said that she had a number of people who told her that I can't speak for other girls feeling unsafe. I can only speak for my experience, which is I don't feel unsafe. And Brian's been honest and paid me back within reasonable time, which is I feel like that's the only refutation I can offer here, right? Especially when it's like, I don't like Andrew Wilson's lines and conversations around marital rape and consent, right? The issue is like his relationship's not my problem. I just don't care. And I think it's fine for Tilly to have the way that she defines it. And by the way she defines it, she does kind of think he's a rapist. I just like don't think it's that deep and it's not my business in like another marriage, which is why I push back softly, but not fastly, because I don't think any of this is that big of a deal.
That's wild.
That's just wild to me. I feel like you might feel a little bit different if it was somebody you cared about or respected and not someone you have obvious disdain for, but that's
probably. Yeah, I think probably. But the issue is that like, I don't really want to get like, even if somebody says this person's a rapist, I'm basically going to go like, okay, well, that's none of my experience with this person. But also I've often been criticized for not sufficiently defending any of my friends, right? Like DGG is often mad at me because I don't doggedly defend Destiny, right? So like me taking a pretty like soft approach to like pushing back on somebody's like essentially personal opinion of the conduct of other people when I disagree is pretty established. People were also upset when Myron Gaines was talking to me about Pixie and he called her like a whore and all sorts of things. And I let him speak. And then I said, well, frankly, I just disagree. And I don't appreciate you saying that. But it's like about the pushback. I'm like, maybe I should push back more always and always. But I think I have an established pattern of even with my friends, not being like dogged and fighting back when people mischaracterize them.
So basically, you have no backbone. You have the backbone of a jellyfish, is what you're telling me. As if that's somehow a flex. I'm not impressed. Maybe I'm just built different, right? Or maybe it's you that's built different. But me personally, ain't nobody could ever say that about me and my friends. Pardon me. Nobody could ever accuse me of being the jellyfish in the room. If somebody says some shit, now listen, there's one important caveat, and that is when my friends are wrong. Depending on the situation, I would not go to bat for them like in some type of pub course if they were wrong. However, like I said, that's kind of situational, right? Because there may be still, like we're talking about here, nuance, right? But one thing I would definitely not do is not stand up for my friends, period. Like for you to say, like, these are people I'm close with and I care about, and I don't even defend them, and they're constantly upset with me about it. Well, no shit. I would be too. If you were supposed to be my friend and you sat there and let somebody talk shit on me. Now, again, it's a little bit, different because it's public figures and, someone like Destiny made plenty of enemies, like totally get that. But for you to try and use that as some type of justification for why it was okay for you not to say anything in this situation just doesn't, square the circle for me. It doesn't make any sense.
Sure. And maybe, I'm not going to speak on your reputation for defending people. I really don't know much of your content outside of your debates, regardless. I'm
That's
also
okay.
not here to just be crazy. That's obviously not why I'm taking time out of my day to speak with you.
Yeah. Well, my pushback to you is saying that's super. I would never expect you to watch any of my content. In fact, any amount that you watch, I'm just grateful for. The only thing I'm saying to you is just don't assume. Like, don't assume about me, especially because in this case, I think it's led to you assuming a few incorrect things. You also said some like stuff about me not defending Destiny, which I just haven't doggedly defended him because I think he's done some bad things.
I never said, no, you may be confusing me with someone else in chat. I said,
Okay.
what I said was you do this thing that Destiny also does, which is assuming the worst in people. That's what I said.
I definitely don't think I assume the worst in people at all. I think the way in which Andrew Wilson has treated me, both principally, like, think about how Andrew Wilson talked to me for 9 hours, right? Like,
Well, I'm not talking about Andrew. I'm talking about the people in your chat, right? And maybe assume the worst is a bad phrase. Maybe I should say something like jump to conclusions, right? Maybe I could have thought on that and formulated that phrasing a little bit better. Because when you read something, like some people are spurging in the chat, that's fine. But I feel like I was respectful, right? And I was just pushing back against this idea that you had. And me and then one other person or two other people are commenting. And then because we're disagreeing with what you're saying, one of your very next statements, I mean, not even 2 minutes after I said, I'm not a black and white person, I'm plenty nuanced, blah, 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 was to literally say, all of you think so black and white, you're such black and white thinkers. You jump to that conclusion automatically, like I was talking about earlier, because
well, a lot of people were being black and white. I don't know if you were necessarily being black and white. You were just saying that what I was saying was ridiculous. From what I remember, you were saying what I was saying is ridiculous. And like, you were like, it seemed like you pretty strongly and vehemently had a major issue with what I was saying. Right.
I only made you can go back and look at it in my history. You're confusing me with the first girl that was talking to you, Chelsea or Kelsey.
Okay, but then in that case, when I said people are speaking black and white, I might not have been talking about you, right? I don't think I directed at you specifically when I said you just said.
This woman, can I just tell you, such a weasel. Like the fact that this is exactly what she does in these conversations and debates, right? Is instead of ever contending with the actual argument, which is, look, just because I disagree with you makes me no lesser, whether it's lesser as a person, lesser intelligence, of lesser ability to be nuanced, lesser period, just because I disagree. She cannot contend with that, right? No, because the whole premise of her attacking the people who disagree with Tilly is that they don't get it. It's nuanced. They don't possibly understand because they're simpletons who cannot read the nuance of the situation. So if she admits to me in this moment right now, no, you're right, people can absolutely disagree with me with that thought, with this premise, and yet not be a staunch black and white closed-minded thinker, then she would have to admit that also she could be wrong about everything else, which she is, but she'll never admit. And she never admits to basically anything this entire conversation, which is why it's labeled, a frustrating conversation, because I just feel like I spent an hour of my time away from my kids on a Saturday with this stupid lady and got absolutely nowhere.
I would like to come up, and I said, okay, you can come up.
And just by the by, what she was talking about is that when I had come into chat, there was somebody else who was like going hard in the paint. I'm not even gonna lie. Definitely an Andrew Wilson fan and a whatever fan, like giving her lunch money, basically, cussing around, not really like cussing around, but very strong opinions, right? Which, I mean, I don't even disagree with, but I was very respectful. So she was, I think, confusing me with that person because of what she was because I never said anything that she just accused me of saying. So it quickly became obvious that she was confusing me with the other person in chat, just for background on that.
Yeah, I'm not trying to play victim here. My point is that I feel as though when we're jumping to those conclusions, that's not helping us be good faith in the conversation. That's why I commented it originally, and that was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Which you guys were coming, but you were coming to conclusions about me. Right? For example, you said you had a bias because I'm friends with Tilly, and also that if I liked Andrew more, I would have more doggedly defended him. And I said, well, I don't actually have any strong.
See, this is like when I mention that I have to go get my daughter from school later, right? And then, we continue the conversation, and I also say we're going to a birthday party tomorrow. It's like you saying 5 minutes later that I have to go get my kid early so we can go to a birthday party tomorrow. See how that makes no fucking sense at all? That's what just happened. Okay. because I never said you should doggedly defend Andrew. And I think now that I'm actually watching, because like I said, I was driving and I was on a headset and like trying to do a couple errands when we were having this conversation. So I wasn't even actually watching her face during this call because I wasn't even on the YouTube app. I was in her Discord, which is how we're having this conversation. So I wasn't seeing her like constantly looking at her screen and reading her chat is what I'm assuming. And so I think what's happening here mostly is that she's not actually listening to anything I'm saying to absorb it and to be able to respond intelligently. She's reading the chat, she's, interacting, doing whatever she's doing, and she's thinking in her mind one sentence in to whatever point I'm making of how she's going to refute it. And so everything else is going over her head. I'm pretty sure that, and she is just terrible faith in general. But we'll give her a little bit of grace and say that maybe that's what's going on.
Wrong history me doggedly defending anyone. Usually I'm too soft by most people's standards in defending like my...
That's not what I said. I said, I believe you could have a bias. I said, we all have our own inherent biases. I never spoke on any of mine. I said, you could because you're friends with Tilly, for example, right? The people starting in the chat could because they're fans of Andrew. I never spoke on any of my biases.
Well, I didn't say you spoke on your... So I'm sorry. I feel like we're misunderstanding each other somehow. What I'm trying to communicate is
here
that...
is what would be really helpful for that. If you would shut the fuck up for more than 10 to 15 seconds at a time. Listen, I know I'm verbose, okay? I'm a female. I talk a lot. I get it, okay? I run my fucking mouth. That's what I do. However, if you actually want to understand what I'm saying, you're going to have to shut your mouth and open your ears long enough to get the point. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right?
It seemed as though you made a bunch of presumptions about me, for example, my bias.
Oh, would you look at that? That's what it goes back to. I made a bunch of presumptions about her, poor Kyla, because it's always about Kyla. It's the ego. When Andrew Wilson says, if you want to upset her, whether even intentionally or not, right? It's not like I was trying to upset her. I was trying to go on to have a conversation. But if you want to see her upset, insult her ego, even unintentionally, I'm somehow upsetting her ego by assuming these things that it's not even an assumption. You said it 2 minutes later. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy I put forward because I know based on your past debates, conversations, and tactics, how you are likely thinking in the moment. I'm not an actual fortune teller, so I can't be sure, but it's a well-reasoned theory, right? Not an assumption.
And you presume, for example, why you thought I was being unfair in my assessment of the situation. Said, well, I have mostly a history of not really doggedly defending my friends.
Well, sure. And I'm not 100% sure I did say that because I'm not going to say, like, I'm not going to give you some prescription for how you should have handled it, right? I've certainly never been in that kind of a messed up situation. And what I personally see is a messed up situation and had to, like, in the moment, think about how I would handle something like that. However, I do know, even if it was somebody, and my problem with it, if you will, my issue, right? I feel like being very generous with myself, maybe I'm not this good of a person, I would hope so. I would really like to think that in the moment, even if it was somebody I really, really disliked, right? Because another thing that you kept saying is you were saying all this other stuff.
I'm sorry. I'm really cracking myself up right now. Pardon me. That just made me giggle. Talk about woman prattle, okay? That's some damn fine quality woman. I do that. I am just horrendously ADHD, right? And so this is why I always say I need to sit down with like a notepad and paper to get my thoughts, right? You're literally a moment, the raw footage of me like ADHD squirreling out, okay? Because if I don't try and organize my thoughts somehow, they all come out at once, like they're happening in my head. And that's what just happened. Like, I set about to say this one thing to her, which is like, this is how I would have liked to think I handled it. And then I went through like all these, little trees. It's just, it's a hot fucking mess. It's a hot mess. I can admit, hot mess, right? So that's one thing that this conversation showed me 1,000%, even if it's just a spur of the moment conversation and not like some type of official debate. Get your notepad, get your paper, sit down and pay attention, or else you're going to spider web off into 100 universes, and that's not helping anyone. What are we doing here?
And maybe she went on to say that after her original statement, and I haven't seen it.
She had like a 2.5 minute statement. I've watched it a bunch. I've watched a bunch privately. What she was saying is essentially what I've summarized. Like, I understand that the way she said it was probably the most kind of like Mott and Bailey extreme way, but the idea she was conveying is what I've communicated. That is what she was saying. Now, you can still take issue with her saying that. I think that that's fine, right? Which is why, for example, it's like, I didn't say that. I probably wouldn't say that. But I don't think that like the way that she's characterizing things is like actually insane. I just think that she used super hyperbolic language. I understand why Andrew Wilson is upset. I just also don't think it's going to turn into an actual lawsuit. And I don't think that he would have grounds for a lawsuit.
You believe Andrew Wilson is a rapist? Is that what you're telling me?
By Tilly's standards. By Tilly's standards, yeah.
Okay, well, let me just point blank ask you. Do you believe Andrew Wilson is a rapist? Do you believe that?
No, because in my mind, I don't think that you can rape somebody. I think like rape has to, like, if Rachel.
Do you see that I had to ask that 3 times to get an answer? Like, this is the exact problem with having conversations with people like Kyla. Like, it is pulling teeth to just get a simple answer, right? And you'll hear several times in the conversation, she asks me questions and I will like, think for a moment, like propose, or I might say, well, let me think, like I might take a moment to process before I give her an answer, right? And the reason that I do that is because I actually want to be good faith and give you a true answer. I don't want to just bullshit you for 5 minutes, right? But she tries to twist herself in pretzels to get out of just saying like, yeah. No, I don't think that. Was that hard?
Wilson keeps insisting that she's consented her whole life, then no, I have no reason to believe that.
Okay. So,
but I don't use Tilly standards, right? I don't have Tilly standards, but I understand why Tilly has the standards that she does.
I don't personally, but even
really,
this
I feel like her standards are super understandable. She has an issue with saying, like, their view is that consent is the marriage contract. Like that is consent. Consent doesn't need to be ascertained after that. And I would say that's a pretty crazy stance. I don't really like it. In the same way, I don't like most non-consent relationships either, right? I'm like, is it rape? I don't know. I don't know. Probably not. It's not my relationship, which is why I don't really comment on it.
I'm really great about consensual non-consent as well, because I think no matter what, you're always working through some type of trauma or something, and that's just probably not healthy. Or maybe it is. I'm not
sure, but I could maybe argue like maybe Rachel Wilson actually has some deep trauma, and when she's publicly saying that she's super down for it, we don't know, but maybe, and I presume that she's crying about it ever. It's just like, I don't know. This is why these things I can look at and I'm like, well, it's definitely not a relationship I would want. I definitely wouldn't.
So why would you possibly make that argument in the first place, right? And this is the thing. If you notice, this is really the first time, or maybe she might have had, I know she brought up the actual subject of marital grape one other time, but this is the first time she in any depth goes into it, right? But you'll see here shortly that I was kind of lost in the situation and not quite understanding that that's what she was trying to attribute to Tilly in the moment that she said he's a rapist, like, period, generally. And so when I noticed that, you're gonna tell. You could be able to, because I push back hard.
Advocate for others that this should be the standard of consent within a marriage, but I'm not going to comment on their particular relationship. I have no idea.
Well, but, and you know what? Even if you did, I think that would be something totally different from what we're saying here, right? Because you said a minute ago, here's what she meant. This is the intent. And this is what you have been saying during the stream, right? This is the intent behind her words, which is, okay, even if we were to be as charitable as possible and say, okay, that's really how she meant it. She really believes in her heart that this is wrong. She's trying to call something out that is wrong, etc., which I truly don't believe that that's the case. But we're being charitable. We'll say that she is, right? There's a big difference in saying, especially out, on a stream, live on the internet. Like, this isn't just you and her kikiing, right? This is public, in a public arena.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between saying, look, I think their ideas of consent, even within their marriage, which is none of my business, I'm still allowed an opinion. I'm still allowed free, well, in the UK, they don't have free speech, but whatever. On the American internet, free speech. So I think there's a big difference between that and Andrew Wilson.
Yeah, but now the difference you're making isn't that she should have a different opinion, it's that she should have more media training. And it's like,
this argument, by the way, these little, like, what she thinks are defeaters that she comes up with, that she uses constantly, like, in the conversation after, it makes me crazy. I kind of wish, like, when you were having a conversation like this, you could agree at the beginning, and I might actually, I don't know, I might actually make up some sort of verbal contract for this in the future. Like, I wish that we could have some consensus that if something is so obviously ridiculous, we just can't use that argument, right? It's like when we're talking about abortion and people say, yeah, but some women are raped, right? Okay, yeah, buddy, but that's literally 0.04%, less than 0.5% of the million babies a year that are murdered, right? So that's a ridiculous argument, like vetoed. You can't use that argument anymore during this discussion. I wish we could do that. And I really want this media training thing to be it, because she continues to use this in the future. And like, how you even got that from what I said, I don't quite understand. Because I didn't say it's not what she said, it's how she said it. It's what she said, period. She didn't say, I think because of his standards in his marriage, he's a rapist. That's not what she said, plain and simple. If y'all weren't here yesterday, I reviewed the entire part of their conversation that happened on her live. I literally went through like 38 minutes of it, right? The entire part that related to Andrew Wilson. And I'm telling you right now, she never gave that context. So she said he's a rapist, not in his marriage, not ABC. That's what she said.
Period. It was literally her first live stream, like ever, right? So it's like, the reality is that she was probably talking with me in the way that she would talk to somebody that she's just like sitting down to, right? I imagine, right, that she wouldn't necessarily describe it in such a way at a public level if she had like been able to like pre-prepare these sorts of things. And I think like this is the level of like, I think a lot of people don't actually understand how much like there is some level of media training that goes into being on live streams. Like, even if you watch the way that Andrew Wilson talks about certain things, there are certain ways that you definitely want to answer things so that like you don't have clips coming to haunt you for the rest of your life, which is why it's actually hard getting clips for him talking explicitly about things like marital rape, because he understands that his private opinion is never going to be optically desirable, right? So he has to like somewhat dodge, and like Tilly just doesn't have that. And so what
you're saying right now is actually that you believe someone being careful not to be clipped equates to them being kind of slimy, right? When I think that's just being careful, right? To understand that you have a huge audience and that things that you say can be used against you. And in an era where we're still kind of doing the cancel culture thing, not wanting to ruin the career that provides for your family and yourself by one clip being out there in the world, certainly is a good enough reason to watch what you say, right? But the fact that you can be careful of what you say or even how you say it is one thing. But I feel like anyone with any sense of period should know better than to make an accusation like that, right? Like, this isn't just some wild thing she said about someone that's like questionable because it attacks some of their ideas or posits her own that are controversial, if you will, right? She attacked his very character. That's the problem.
say Tilly's wrong for opinion, and she shouldn't think that Rachel Wilson is essentially being raped, or that Andrew Wilson's raping her. I think that you can have that opinion. I just don't care that much. Like, I'm just like, okay, that is her opinion. I pushed back, and I don't typically have opinions about people's relationships by and large, especially people that I like know. It's weird for me. But maybe that's cowardly on my part. Maybe that's bad on my part.
Maybe.
Well, I can't say what's bad or good for you. I can say that's not what I said. What I said is she's allowed to think whatever she wants. And really, there's a whole thing between the UK. I'm not sure if she still actually lives in the UK versus America versus free speech, because it absolutely could be all sorts of legal charges in the UK. They don't really have a free speech protection like we do. But regardless, she's allowed to think and say whatever she wants. But it's not about, it's like ought versus is. Is she allowed to think and say this versus ought she, right? And you can.
But this is media training now, which is why I'm saying, like, it's. Well, people are like.
You could say.
People are making it out to claim that she's doing some sort of like crazy Me Too. She's saying his mentality around consent in marriages. That's what people said that. Lots of people have said that she is doing a Me Too movement, and that she is falsely accusing him. And it's like, of what?
I mean, she is falsely
of what? Of what? She's not saying that he rapes Rachel Wilson. She's saying that their entire standard of consent is rapey.
Or how deep did you go into that topic during the stream? Like the fact that it was like she was specifically talking about their marriage, because from what I've seen, and once again, I'm glad to admit I'm wrong if I am, but from what I've seen, she didn't say anything about that. What she said was she doesn't like the way that he's like looking at women, and she didn't feel you were safe sitting down beside him.
She didn't say anything. She didn't say anything about how Andrew.
Okay. Also, if ever you're going to have a conversation with somebody like this, have a few examples in your mind prepared for your arguments, like in this specific context, right, ahead of time, and be thinking on those. Because when I was trying to go back in the moment, and I'm like at the store getting my groceries, trying to have this conversation with Kyla, right, I'm trying to recall exactly what Tilly said in the moment of this conversation, and it's difficult. So I like misspoke there, because no, she didn't say that, right? She didn't say, I don't like the way he's looking at women. That is the impression I got from her words when they were conversating about it. Like that the way that he like looks at, treats, speaks to women, and not even in like a lustful sense, which I think might be how she took it, almost in like a disgusted sense, is what Tilly thinks, right? This is what I think Tilly thinks. Let me rephrase. And so when I was trying to describe the essence of it, she's taking everything, of course, because she's actually the black and white thinker. She's taking everything at face value and finding anything to attack within that one example, instead of, once again, arguing the premise.
Andrew Wilson looks at women. I don't think she thinks that Andrew Wilson has misogynistic, sexist views, but so does 98% of the planet, right? Like most people don't like Andrew Wilson's view. I shouldn't say 98%. I should say 51% of the planet, because lots of people do like what he has to say. Sure. But lots of people would call him misogynistic and sexist, right? I would say his ideology is misogynistic and sexist, right?
I think those are. Really,
but she wasn't saying that he looks at men in some sort of weird way. It seems like you now don't remember the conversation. What I'm describing to you is essentially what she was trying to communicate. Did she communicate it in?
Here's the thing, though. You just went from you don't remember the conversation, right? Implying that she's giving me back word for word, verbatim, what Tilly said. What she essentially was trying to describe. Right? So you're not giving me word for word anything, yet here you are talking to me like I'm some type of dumbass that cannot recall a few minute long conversation, when in reality, you're not giving that back to me. You're trying to explain to me the context that was in her mind that I suppose all of us were supposed to just understand. Like we're supposed to be mind readers and understand that's what she was going for. I'm not sure, but certainly that wasn't the point that was actually made.
in a really bad way? Yes. Do I necessarily agree with all of her like opinions about Andrew? Not all of them necessarily, which is why I push back in the areas where I felt sufficient to push back. But I also don't think that I'm going to like hang my hat on Tilly because like she doesn't have ideal media training. And at the same time, Andrew and Rachel being upset by that is super understandable. I'm not surprised that they're upset by that.
Yeah, I'd be mad as hell if somebody said that about my husband. Mad as hell. And here's the thing, right? It's not
Sure.
about media training.
But that doesn't mean
There's a lot
something
of
like
people-
objectively morally evil happened here necessarily.
Here's the thing. A lot of people in this space really want to overcomplicate simple shit. And really, at the end of the day, anyone who has 2 brain cells to rub together or above a room temperature IQ should know better than to go on anywhere in the internet, whether it's on their own channel, somebody else's, big, small, doesn't matter, and broadcast an accusation, which is a hell of a lot what that sounded like, that somebody is a rapist.
What do you
That
mean?
is
People
wild.
broadcast for like a year straight that I was a Ghislaine Maxwell.
Here we go. Back to Kyla. Who's surprised? Certainly not me, right? Here I am giving you a very, maybe not succinct, but a very well-reasoned argument. Listen, you can try and say it's media training. However, if you are above the age of, say, 8 and smarter than, say, having a 70 IQ, you should definitely know better. Just period, point blank, not because you've had media training or because you're an influencer or because you're super highly intelligent even, just because you are a grown-ass human here in America, the greatest place on, in the world, greatest country in the world, you should know better than to go on the internet and call someone a rapist, period. That's the argument, right? I feel like that's well-reasoned and rational. I feel like it's fair. However, she's now literally making it seem as if I'm trying to say she did not say whatever she thinks, which is just fine and dandy, exactly the correct way because she hasn't been taught how. Like, how do you truly in your mind get there? I just don't understand. And then on top of it, respectfully, bitch, we weren't talking about you. Like, many times during this conversation, she brings it back to like how she was treated and her relationship and all of that. Like, what does that have shit all to do with what we're talking about, Kyla? Nothing, right? I don't really give a damn about all that past shit because the whole thing is it doesn't relate. If your past shit related to the current conversation, then it would be fair to bring it up. But just because people said bad things about you, questionably justified, if you did what you were accused of doing. I won't even talk on that right this second. If you know, you know. If you did what you were accused of doing, it is fair for people to make comments like that. And you can disagree if you want, but hell, if it's okay to think a married man having sex with his wife is marital rape, then I think it's pretty fair to say that you were acting like Ghislaine Maxwell for covering up sex crimes for your friend Destiny. I think that's beyond fair, right? Just being real.
Right? Like, what do you mean people should know better? It seems like there are massive, large channels, including Andrew Wilson to some degree, that will say crazy shit about other content creators and their opinions on those other content creators, and they'll say it in an objective way. And like, I don't necessarily agree with all that. I think that people should be more cautious with their language. But to act like what Tilly did is some uniquely special, crazy thing that isn't happening on the internet all the time with very large figures. Like, think of the things that Hassan has just like outright said about.
Why do you have to drag everybody and their brother, cousin, uncle into it, right? Again, this drives me crazy. Like, we're not talking about all that. We're talking, oh, sorry, I almost dropped you. We're talking about this particular situation. Why is Andrew saying even, wild and crazy shit, according to you, but whatever, different than Tilly calling him a rapist? Well, I'll tell you, as someone who's watched a whole lot of Andrew Wilson, I haven't seen him actually make that many wild and crazy, unfounded claims against people. In fact, I've seen him go out of his way to be charitable and refuse to talk about people like Destiny, like Nick Fuentes, right? Like Brian Shapiro. There's a few, like you, as a matter of fact, Kyla, There's a few times I have seen him shut down people trying to get him to shit talk people, basically, right? I have seen him say some things that, accusations, if you will, toward, if you want to talk about this particular situation, Destiny, right? After there is evidence, right? He doesn't just bring it up because his feelings on the subject could mean X, Y, or Z. There is evidence to support that that is possible. That's the difference. Here, Tilly's quote unquote evidence is how she feels about his personal relationship and his marriage and his personal sex life, which is what you're claiming, right? I still posit the fact that that was never what it was about. But if that's what you're claiming, that's the difference.
Other content creators, right? And like nothing's really happened. And so again, I would say it is upsetting. It's not a wise thing to do necessarily, but especially in the way that Tilly like couched a lot of and talked about all of her language. I still think it's wrong. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I don't think it's nearly as deep as people are making it out to be, while simultaneously acknowledging and understanding why the Wilsons are upset. I'm doing all of these things. And I think the way most people are reacting to the clip are beyond what needs to be the reaction. I don't think it's nearly as big as people are making it out to be.
Well, but see, if it was a woman talking about her assault, you definitely would not be telling her to make her voice smaller, right?
What?
A man
what does that have to do?
Accused, because I'm telling you, listen.
What is she accusing him of?
What does that have to do with anything? I know. It's kind of disconcerting and off-putting when somebody brings up a totally unrelated point, huh? It's weird. Weird how that works.
She's not saying that he is raping. She's saying by his... She's saying his mentality is... She's saying his mentality makes him... That is what she's saying. That is what she's saying. That is what she's saying. She says...
That's the intention. That's the intention. That was not the words that came out of her mouth. And you can blame it on no media training. To me, it's just that she hates him. And she wasn't... I don't even think it's unintelligent. I don't think she's stupid. I don't. Which is worse for her. It would be better if she was just a dumb broad that didn't know better.
Media
right?
training has nothing to do with being smart or stupid, right?
Nobody said that.
What has nothing to do with it? I'm sorry?
Being smart or stupid has nothing to do with media training.
No, right. I'm saying, like, before I was saying anybody who's more intelligent, has a higher than room temperature IQ should know better, right? So I was kind of tying my now statement to my then statement by saying, I don't think she's stupid, that almost that would be better. That if she had no media training or she was just some dumb broad, is what I just said 2 seconds ago, that it would almost make it better. Because I, in fact, think she's not stupid. And I think that she just has a hatred for Andrew Wilson, like a whole lot of people.
But like, I won't say which specifically, but there's times where like Andrew Wilson said insane shit.
Now, careful. Don't let your caller speak, because she's making a point here that she doesn't think this woman is stupid or lacking in media training, but in fact, that she did it maliciously, that she went on this to have this conversation with you and very intentionally said such an inflammatory and untrue statement intentionally to poke the bear, which is what I'm saying when I'm saying all this. And of course, I couldn't finish that last little bit of sentence, but I'm pretty sure we all understand that. Be careful now. You can't let me make too much sense. Can't do that.
Shit, I've heard him and his community call me a whore. They've implied that I'm cucking men.
And here we are, back to Kyla. This is so exhausting. Like, I wish I had a counter on screen. It's like how many times I brought my life, my relationship, my experiences up and tied it into this versus her, right? Because I think maybe I did it once or twice when it was actually like plausible, if you will. Whereas Kyla is just fucking constant. Like, is that all you think about, lady, is yourself? Because we're not talking about you. Get over yourself.
Right? They've said like really insensitive, cruel, nasty things about my marriage. That is mean, and I definitely don't like it, right? But it hurts my feelings when they say these things. But I also recognize to some degree that probably by their worldview, I am a whore because I dress with like, looking good, like looking sexy.
Questionable. Very questionable.
Essentially, right? So by their standards, they're not even lying. when they say that I'm a whore, even though I would disagree that I'm a whore, and I'm certainly not prostituting myself, right? And so it's like, okay, so is what he's doing there immoral? It's like, yeah, it's probably not a good thing to say, but also, is he lying based on his own worldview? Not really.
Well, respectfully, I'm not going to engage in a hypothesis of morality or any kind of gauge or judgment of morality from the same person who claims to be a Christian, who lives by a Christian worldview, and says that out of one side of her mouth, and out of the other says that she cannot condemn abortion because she can't force people who are not Christian, not just abortion, any number of things, by the way, any number of degenerate things. She cannot, like sex work, for example, condemn these things, because if these people are not a Christian, they're not expected to live by her worldview, and therefore they are not being immoral. Like, these are the type of mental gymnastics that she does to try and justify how she is just wildly hypocritical. Isn't even the word. Heretical. She's a heretic.
Just like she's not really lying based on her old worldview, even though you might be like, she should probably say, probably shouldn't call me a whore because that's mean to say. I would say, yeah, she probably shouldn't call him a rapist because that's mean to say. She should probably say the way that he views consent, him and his wife, is rapey. That's probably the media way that she should have said it. But I'm not going to, like, again, hang Tilly over like media training.
But so the entailment, that is the entailment of what you were saying before, is what I was about to add. It was thing where you say, like, yeah, I was wrong, I wouldn't have done that, you know, yeah, I don't agree with it, but then you turn right back around and then you say, yeah, but you know, his audience has done this for me, almost implying therefore he deserves to be slandered, right?
That is not at all what I'm implying. I'm implying necessarily the opposite. I'm saying he has said, yeah, I've said he's said terrible things about me.
Here comes Brian. I was wondering what Brian had said in the chat to upset her, because you'll see momentarily she was very annoyed. I didn't even see it, but I heard it in her voice, and I was wondering what he said. So if you're watching, you know, if you're on a phone, you can tilt your screen to see over here on the right. I'm leaving a live chat replay up. And by the way, I'm telling you what, her fans, friends, whatever, just mean, malicious, just dog shit people, in my own personal opinion. Make no logical sense, and also degenerates, complete degenerates. But neither here nor there. You can see the whatever is highlighted here at the bottom. That's Brian coming in.
And at the same time, it makes sense that I'm upset. And also at the same time, it doesn't mean that he's doing something gravely wrong. I think it's a little bit wrong.
Him or her? Sorry, you said he's doing something wrong. You mean in his... Okay.
Also, so Brian's in chat. Brian, don't use debate bro terms, please. You're not ready for this. You're not ready for it.
Bitch. I can't. The arrogance it takes, right, to literally have someone come into your chat and they use 2 words with you. That's all. 2 words. False equivalence, which is literally what I've been saying for an hour, right? And he says it in 2 words, super succinct. We love it. False equivalence. And you have to insult and demean him immediately, right? Which is a habit and a pattern for Kyla here. Only it's one of those things where when you act that way, you don't convince other people that you're actually somehow superior or more intelligent. You just look like a bitch. Just FYI, the whole "you're not very likable" thing that Andrew tried to kind of slide in there and help you with on your debate, you might want to take some pointers, because I think he's doing all right, and I don't know that you're doing that well.
But Brian from whatever?
Yeah, he's in the chat.
You don't say, okay.
Literally, I almost said a few things that would have completely derailed. I know who I'm talking to at this point. I understand if I say a word about Brian or whatever, we are no longer discussing Andrew. That's over with, right? And in a complete different universe, and we have moved on. So I'm just like, nope, never mind.
I'm not even going to touch on that. He can defend himself. He's a grown man.
I'm just telling him to stop using debate bro terms. He doesn't know how to do them.
Okay, here's the entailment. What you just said, though, is that you said, look, because his audience has said this, it's hurt my feelings. They can believe that it's true in their heart, right? And even if you don't agree that it's true about yourself, it's true to them, therefore justified, right? So the entailment of that is
it's mean. Well, no, it's mean. It's mean for them to say it about me no matter what. Should I sue them?
I mean, for what? Oh, that's
calling me a whore,
a second ago.
for example.
You literally said that you think his marriage is rapey, but then 2 minutes ago you just said to me that it hurts your feelings when they say you're.
I said Tilly thinks that his marriage is rapey.
I mean, you're pretty much agreeing at this point. You said you didn't, but then you did. Like, you keep kind of waffling, which is why I tried so hard a moment ago when you did say, like, yes, it was wrong, when I keep going back and forth and back and
this
forth.
is the black and white thinking that you're wanting. You just
no, it's not. It's not black or white thinking to demand a straight answer. This is your problem right here, right? This is like when I say you overcomplicate simple shit, right? And later in the conversation, she harkens back to that because I say it once or twice, and she says, oh, maybe you just can't keep up. Yeah, that would be nice for you, huh? It would be really simple if I was just some dumb broad that doesn't understand anything, because then that would make you superior, which is what you clearly already think you are and would like to be, right? But in reality, I'm following you perfectly fine, but I'm following you down a rabbit hole. I understand the words coming out of your mouth. That doesn't make them make sense. This is what people like her, people like Destiny, do not understand, right? It's like you can literally word vomit for me, verbally, a 10,000 word essay, right? That does not mean any of it makes logical, cohesive, coherent sense. Period. Super simple. You can say as much as you want and not say a fucking thing, which is what you're really great at.
Want me to like weigh in strongly, like one way or the other. I don't like the standard of consent erected in Andrew Wilson's marriage and the way that he talks about it. I'm not in the marriage. I'm not Rachel Wilson. So I don't really have a strong opinion on what their relationship looks like, especially when both seem to say that they're happy with their marriage.
Okay.
However,
and also we need to pay attention here because see, she's trying to drag us down a rabbit hole again when, if you recall my question, because the entire time I'm not switching or taking a step back at all in my position. My position was, is, and will remain, right? That Tilly was in fact generally blanketing Andrew with that word. Not that she meant it in a specific context, but that she meant it generally and did it intentionally to slander him. Nobody could convince me otherwise at this point. That's my, contention. This is what I'm putting forth to her. So I asked her, I did not ask her, do you think Andrew rapes Rachel? Never did that sentence come out of my fucking mouth. It drives me crazy. She acts like I said that 4 or 5 more times in this conversation, right? Never did I say that because she is continuously talking about the marital rape. But this entire time, I am only talking about the accusation of rape, plain and simple. Right. So she keeps making this false equivalence for literally the entire conversation. And it's infuriating.
The standards of consent in their marriage, I don't like. I think those standards are kind of rapey, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I think Andrew Wilson himself is doing a rape. In fact, my suspicion is he's not. It seems like Rachel is a very willing participant in the sexual exchange.
Why would you allow someone to say that? Just saying.
Of their marriage.
Right.
I still think that their standards of consent are problematic and rapey, right? I wouldn't prescribe it to other people. I think it's dangerous standards.
I think that's, without being within their marital bed or within their marital home, I think it's really crazy for you to make wild assumptions like that.
It's not crazy at all. Okay. The difference is I'm saying the ideas around how they talk about consent, I find to be a problem. I don't actually know the literal exchange of sexual relations between them. I'm not really weighing in. It's not really my business. But the standards of consent, I am not a big fan of personally either. I just don't talk about their marital bed because it's none of my business. And the only reason I'm being forced to is because you're asking me to weigh in on their marital bed.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm asking for your opinion, mostly about that.
About their marital bed. Yes. You're wanting me to weigh in on their marital bed. And I'm saying to you, I don't really know. I'm not Rachel Wilson.
you keep reading all this context into, like I said before, with people overcomplicating simple shit. That's
what context am I reading into your questions when you explicitly asked me to weigh in on the status of Andrew Wilson? And
no, I didn't. I never asked you that. I wonder if, I mean, no, I was about to say, I wonder if she ever goes back and watches these conversations again, right? But I know she wouldn't do that because that requires like self introspection, wanting to improve yourself, wanting to understand things better, right? Wanting to become better generally. So I know she wouldn't do that. But if she did, I would really love to hear her take on this, because we are going to have a meta conversation at some point, not right this second, which is also happening now, but for literally like 20 minutes in the future about this exact part of the debate, right? Or conversation, if you will, is that she continues to accuse me of trying to pin her down and get her to say that Andrew is graping Rachel. She continues to posit, I have asked her if I think he is committing marital grape, which was literally never the question, never the argument, never the idea, period. It's just shit she has in her own head.
And Rachel's marriage. And I'm saying to you,
No,
I can't really do that. I'm not in the marriage. I can only go by what they say. But the idea of how they talk about consent, I don't like it. Right?
And you said, yeah, you said a few minutes ago that it's wild and you don't think most people would agree, where obviously a whole lot of people agree. You can go on any of the whatever debates where he's discussed his marriage or that particular issue.
And I would tell all of those people that I disagree with their idea of consent around marriage. Right? In the same way, for example, I can agree that I disagree with, for example, their view of Christianity and that's in the relationship between church and state. That doesn't mean that I would weigh in on their personal status of salvation, right?
Yeah.
Do you see how these two things are comparable? The analogy that I'm drawing here, I'm weighing on the ideas that they talk about and saying, yeah, I don't like them. But their personal sexual status of whether or not what's going on, that's only for theirs to comment on. I don't know between them.
I really wish I would have seen this in the moment, because this is a great point from Brian, from whatever here. He makes a point in the chat at this point. It's a false equivalence because one accusation alleges a violent crime while the other is an insult about sexual reputation. The legal and moral stakes are completely different. And of course, Brian's correct. Like, this is one of the biggest points, right? Is that the context she's reading into it isn't just like, I'm giving you a little bit of background, you know, like meta conversation for the conversation. No, it literally takes it from you're making an unfounded and slanderous allegation, right? To you have an opinion about someone's relationship that's quite frankly none of your damn business, but not somehow, I mean, you know, you could question the moral and ethical implications of having that kind of an opinion. But I'm really not interested in what people think about me or other people, to be quite frank. So that's whatever. Publicly is a different story, but nah, we're not going to scroll and go down that rabbit hole, right? But in the other situation, you're literally making this slanderous allegation on Al Gore's internet in front of God and everybody. It's different. Whether you would like to admit it or not, it's different. And you had a part in it. So there's that.
But obviously not, because you are saying that well, maybe you didn't outright agree, but the entailment of the argument you just made was that you agree that their marriage is rapey. And I'm just not sure where, especially when you just said out of your mouth, I don't know, 10 minutes, that it's hurtful when people basically put your marriage on trial in the public eye.
Yeah, really which is why I already said I understand why Andrew and Rachel are upset. Yes. Like everything, I'm holding consistent across all of these lines. Andrew and Rachel Wilson being angry makes sense to me, although I don't believe that it'll lead to a lawsuit, right? In the moment of the conversation with Tilly, gave my genuine experience, which is that I've never felt unsafe around these individuals, like physically under threat, right? And that Brian has, by and large, always treated me well. He's always paid me on time, et cetera, followed through on all of the like agreements, never made me feel unsafe in any way, right? That's what I said. I also think what people are making a big deal about Tilly isn't as big of a deal as people are making it out to be, but I also understand why people are upset by it. It's about us being upset that as any other content creator talking really negatively about you, especially about your relationship.
But that was never the context, you liar. You hear me roboting right now. It's because I'm literally in the store. I go into the store and I lose service, which is why I'm like, and she's sitting here like, what the
I'm so sorry, you're breaking up a little bit.
A little bit, girl. You could have said you have been lost down the well. Super robot-y.
Thank you. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
And now I'm outside of the store.
I went into the store and I don't know, sometimes it gets wonky with my service.
Yeah.
I was saying this is another example of you speaking out of both sides of the mouth.
Nope.
Because you said that you understand why they're upset, right?
Yep.
But then you literally said to me 2 minutes ago that everybody's just making a big deal about it, that it's not that wild and crazy.
It's not as big of a deal as
some...
people are acting that it is. I don't think it's lawsuits tier, and I don't think that it's a Me Too moment.
I mean,
can you understand that I can agree that something upsetting happened and also say it's probably not all the way on this really far end of something? Can you understand that?
Well, like I said, as a nuanced person myself, I can see the nuance. Yes. However, I don't.
Well,
really
can you agree that this could be essentially spectrumal? That there could be a range of how big of a deal something can be, right? It's not that something is either a big deal or not a deal at all. It can be somewhere in between. And so what I'm saying is people are saying it's a really big deal. And my personal opinion is it's not as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. But I understand why people...
It's not a big deal to you because it's not you, right? When you were just talking a moment ago about how people talk about your marriage, it was horrible and hateful and awful and hurt your feelings. But of course, it's not a big deal to you now because it's not about you. Imagine that.
It's a little bit of a deal, for sure.
Wow. Crazy.
And do you think that you would feel the same if they were saying that about your husband? Just out of curiosity?
I'd probably feel bigly about it, but that wouldn't mean that I'm justified, for example, in trying to sue somebody because they said that I cuck Nick, right?
Well, I mean, I have no opinions on that. It's just like their marriage isn't my business, neither is yours.
I had to stop myself there because when she said that, I almost made a few comments, right? That would have just been degrading for no reason. And I can have those opinions all I want, right? And if I were to have a conversation like this with Kyla again, I probably would, because I was actually trying to remain good faith in the conversation. So I did not make those comments. That's why I just like, anyway, I don't have anything to say about that. Like, I was not going to go there, right? We're going to see where that goes.
Which is why I basically don't want to comment. And you've been trying to force me to comment on their marriage, but I don't really want to comment on their marriage. I have no idea. I'm not.
Lady, you are fighting the definition of a straw man right now, Kyla. I mean, I wish I could make you understand this, but I tried for like 20 more minutes and indeed I could not. But I never one time asked you to comment on anyone's marriage, right? Ever. I asked you to comment on a couple of things. I did ask your opinion about a couple of things, right? Which is, do you think Andrew Wilson is a rapist? Generally, period. Because that's what Tilly said, whether you like it or not, right? I asked if you think it was a good idea to promote that type of speech, if you will. I asked basically if you were happy with the way you handled it. These are the types of questions I asked you, right? And yet you want to pick one thing out. You want to put an entire straw man around it on something I never even said. Literally, we're reviewing it right now. Never happened. It never happened. And then attack the straw man to obviate from my very valid points everywhere else.
Part of the relationship. All I can go off of is what they say. But I can comment on how they talk about consent in marriage broadly and say, I don't like it. I agree it is a little bit rapey. I don't like it very much. But I'm not commenting on their personal rape status. I have no idea. I'm not in a relationship.
Yeah, well, it's probably wise. And I'm not trying to force you into anything. I mean, you
Well, you were wanting me to, well, you asked me directly, do you think that he's a rapist? So you did want me to comment on it.
Right. There, you just said it. That's exactly what I said. Do you think he's a rapist? Not, do you think he grapes his wife? Kyla, you pretend to be the smartest person in every room you walk into. Surely you understand this. This is the gaslighting of these crazy people, right? Is the fact that they will demean you and try and insult your intelligence, right? When in reality, they're not getting the fact that, you know what? No, here we are. I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt, because for you to be dumb enough to not understand would mean you're actually trying to be decent in this conversation. But I know better. You are in fact gaslighting. You do in fact know better, and you're fighting a straw man. So it's not even that you're stupid, which, you know, again, would be better, just like with the Tilly situation. It's just that you are a twisted, manipulative, conniving, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not facetious, fake and gay type of lady. Fake and gay. It's fake and gay. All of it is fake and gay.
Right. And then you said, do you think that rape is happening in the marriage? You wanted me to directly to comment on it.
Yeah, it's not like I asked you to go blow by blow on how you think it's happening. It's a very direct
Hold on. That's not what I
question.
said. And I don't know why you're saying that. I didn't say that you asked me to walk you through blow by blow the entire sexual.
See the way that she's like, keeps zeroing in on this? Like, you want to know the definition of bad faith in a conversation generally? Be this intentionally dense and just diabolically and intentionally twisting the information to fit some straw man narrative you yourself have created. Yeah, that's like a very clear example of gaslighting and terrible faith.
Sexual interface between Rachel and Andrew Wilson. I said that you asked me to comment on their sexual relationship. I'm not really comfortable in doing that. I gave you my best estimation, but I broadly don't think that we should comment on other people's marriages. But you can comment on people's ideas around consent in marriage, even if that person's married. Right?
Speaking with you can be an exercise. So I'm sorry, but you're just kind of all over the place.
I'm not all over the place.
Right?
You are all over the place. The fact that you can't see that,
consistent.
Okay, well, sure.
I'm not saying that I think so. I have been consistent the entire time. I have said there are two ideas being talked about, X and Y.
This is the problem, though. X is what actually happened, and Y is a narrative of your own creation that you are pretending is the factual reality in front of us. That's the problem, right? Is the straw man you built is Y, when I am positive X, and you're acting as if these things are in any way equivalent or equal, which they are not.
X being the idea of consent generally in marriage. And specifically, Andrew's ideas of consent in marriage. And Y is the actual status of Andrew and Rachel Wilson's marriage. I don't really want to talk about Y. I think the implications that Tilly made about Y probably were overstepped and she shouldn't have done. However, X is what she was actually talking about. And in the case of X, I'm willing to have that conversation. But now what you're trying to do is you're trying to say you have one opinion on X and a different one on Y. And I'm going, yeah. Of course.
I wasn't even talking about it. I was talking about how I told you, right? This is what I'm asking from you, and I'm not asking you X. And you straw man that entire statement into.
How did I straw man it?
Well, you just asked me because I'm telling you. Because then you said, but I didn't say you told me to tell you exactly blow by blow, and you just said that. Like, I can't remember your exact words. It's 2 seconds ago. I'm sure you remember what you said, right?
What's the straw man here? Sorry. What's the false argument that I've erected?
That I asked you for that I ever even asked you to comment.
You
see, this is the thing. This is where the insulting the intelligence begins. She truly believes I'm so dumb that I can both not understand what a straw man is and not point out the straw man. Bitch, I've understood you the entire time, right? It's not that I don't understand you. It's that you don't make logical sense. Right. I've already explained this. Y'all know.
I did.
Indeed,
We
on
can just go
different
back in the
ways.
tape.
No,
You asked me
no.
you asked me
Ask
directly. You asked me directly if Andrew Wilson's a rapist.
Is that anything about his marriage, or is that in the context
It's
of how
implied
she
since we're talking about marital rape. Yes.
We weren't, though. You raging lunatic. That's the entire point. You are talking about marriage because that is the straw man you have built post hoc or ad hoc to justify the crap that your buddy old pal Tilly just did on your show, right? But that's not what the conversation actually was. Like, for someone who really staunchly believes they're, you know, highly intelligent, how can you not be keeping up with this fact? It's just crazy to me.
Yes, obviously.
No, this is what you're not understanding.
Sorry, you were asking me if he's a rapist generally, and we're talking about marital rape and his views on marital rape, but you weren't actually asking me about him and Rachel Wilson specifically.
I don't know if you're intentionally being obtuse.
I'm not intentionally being obtuse. I'm outlining exactly what you have said and asking you how it is the case that what you're saying is consistent. It seems like you're slipping around.
No, indeed, I'm not. When we were having the conversation,
My tone, when I hear it back, cracks me up sometimes. I said, no, indeed, I'm not. And indeed, you weren't, girl. Tell her.
Towards the very beginning, right? Maybe like a quarter in, I was asking, like, if you thought that it was fair that anybody that was intelligent would not make a smarter statement. Your reply was that, or make the statement in a different way, excuse me. And your reply was no media training, right? You waffled back and forth. And
did I waffle or did I say media training? Did I say media training? What's the waffle?
No, I'm not. While we're going through here, you've got to just let me talk for 5 seconds and I'll answer all your questions that you're interjecting, right? When I'm talking about waffling, I mean with your opinion on, is it wrong? Do they have a right to be upset? Well, not really, but and then minimize. That's why I was trying to pin you down and say, hey, do you think he's a rapist? And before I asked you that, I specifically told you, I'm like, look, she could have said X or Y or Z, but she didn't. She didn't say it was about his marriage. She didn't go into that context. All she said was because X, Y, Z, that had nothing to do with his marriage, even though you're trying to add that context post hoc, right? She said generally because of different reasons. Like,
what's post hoc? What?
This fucking cunt. Let me just be really clear, okay? Let me just be really clear. I am very proud of myself for keeping my cool in this conversation with a bad faith interlocutor who's just an egotistical, conceited cunt waffle, okay? I'm very proud of myself. What I should have said in that moment is, listen, you fucking cunt. I'm not half as intelligent as you think you're not giving me credit for. Here's the problem, right? When you want to play all of these games, like you think that I'm not understanding the words that I myself am using, and I've already passed like 4 or 5 of your little shitty shit tests, right? Maybe you could just for a moment and shut your mouth and open your ears. And perhaps if you actually paid attention to the point I'm making, you could make a cohesive, coherent argument against it. But instead, you can't do that. So what you've got to try to do is insult my intelligence, demean me, imply that I don't understand the very language that I'm using, right? And try and make me look like an idiot when in reality, anyone who views this, well, anyone but the kind of stupid people that follow you, because as we're reading the chat, we're seeing that these brainwashed people really believe everything you're saying, which is so wild. And a lot of them are men, just simpy men, and it's but whatever. Regardless, anyone else that's not these simpy men who want to be your next cuck, right? Understand that it is not me who's not making sense here. And when you have to stoop so low as to, well, what is that? And see, this is the thing. Did you see her face when she asked? If she were to ask, wait a minute, what do we mean by post hoc? To make sure that we were not equivocating, right? And speaking past each other. because we're using terms differently, that would be one thing. That's not her intent here. Let's be clear. Her intent is to insult and demean me. And I think I kept it together all right. Maybe I should not have. I feel like perhaps me keeping my cool for the majority, well, I would really argue the entirety of this conversation, probably helped lead it off the rails. I feel if I was actually a bit more aggressive and a bit more just bitchy, I should have been a little bitchier, matched her energy at least, because she was certainly bitchy enough for the both of us, right? Had I been a little more bitchy, maybe we could have stayed on track. And maybe I could have gotten more than one straight answer in this entire conversation.
What's post-hoc?
You're justifying that she meant he's a rapist.
I'm not. You can listen to what she says there, and it's pretty obvious that she is talking about how they think about marital rape. And by those standards, and by her standards, that makes him a rapist, right? Now, I disagree, because I actually think that you can have one opinion about marital rape and not be a rapist, right? Which is why I softly push back. But again, I don't think it's something that they can sue Tilly about, while simultaneously, I can say it's completely understandable that the Rachel Wilson and Andrew are upset by Tilly's comments. And I also do understand what Tilly was saying. I'm not saying I wholeheartedly agree with what Tilly was saying.
I should hope not. And that's exactly what I was trying to ask you about in the context of like, love you.
Well, no, you're saying, do you think he is a binary, this or this? And I'm saying, I don't know. I don't know anything about his sexual like history, right? It's possible, like, I don't know. Why would I ever comment on that? I have no idea. But his idea of informed consent in marriage is certainly rapey. That doesn't mean that he is a rapist. I don't like it. But it's not even Andrew Wilson unique. Every single person who thinks that consent begins and ends, that once you sign the marital vows, that is consent forever, I think that idea is rapey.
I mean, I feel like I know a lot more people that agree.
He's getting a little worked up. Can you tell? Meanwhile, I'm running my errands, doing my thing, just trying to make heads or tails of this crazy lady in this conversation. And you can see her pulse in her neck right now. And her breathing is like, she's having to catch her breath after she just told me off. Like, girl, calm down. I don't know if she actually like hates Andrew Wilson or if it's one of those love-hate things, you know? I don't know. I'm just saying.
If you're in a relationship, not even a marriage, in a relationship, that you have consensual sex in generally, unless you have some sort of breakup problem conversation about not having sex, that assent is assumed.
Okay, I disagree with that. That doesn't mean that I think that a married couple has... Stop, just pause.
Bitch, you've talked 80% of the time so far and still made zero sense.
Agree with that. I think your idea in and of itself that a consent is assumed is also a little bit rapey, but that doesn't mean that I think you are a rapist. I have no idea. I don't know what you get up to. I hope not. That'd be bad.
Wow. Why is it rapey?
I think it's
not answering me.
I've answered every one of your questions directly.
No, you have
despite
not.
You insisting that I'm waffling. Why do I think it's rapey? I think assuming consent generally and forever, because you're in a relationship, leads to situations of problematic consent. So when I say rapey, I mean having sex with somebody who might otherwise not want to.
Do you think if someone is we'll just stick to marriage since that's the topic, in a loving and healthy marriage, right? Do you think the norm would be that they would normally consent to sex, given, even to add the qualifier, they have a healthy sex life, perhaps, or intimate life?
Yeah, I think the implied consent is there, but typically in most sexual engagements, as somebody who's married and has sex, right, there's still some level of consent that's going on, right? So, for example, sometimes when I want to have sex with Nick, I'll just be very direct and I'll be like, "Hey, do you want to go smash?" And sometimes he'll say, "Yeah," and sometimes he'll say no. And then other times what'll happen is I'll wake up in the morning with a boner against my back and he's kind of like rubbing all over and he's looking for some implied consent from me. For example, me reaching back and like engaging with him, right? That would be a cue that I am consenting to sex in that moment. Whereas if I, for example, if he's got a raging boner against my back and I roll away a little bit and get on my phone, that would be implied consent that I am not interested, right? Which is why I think consent once isn't just what you should go with forever. You should at all times be looking from your partner, whether or not they seem kind of interested, whether you're looking for that consent explicitly or implied. I would never assume consent because I think assuming consent is rapey.
Okay, first of all, we didn't need to know any of those little throw-in details about your sex life either, right? That's kind of gross. Don't really want to hear about it, you know? First. Second of all, you just exactly defeated your own argument. And I feel like you're not quite smart enough to understand it. Neither is anybody in your chat, right? Because exactly what you just said is almost certainly happening in the Wilson household daily, right? Because the argument is that there's an implied consent when you don't stop your husband, correct? So then, in order for you to be making any type of a valid point, you would have to be suggesting that Andrew Wilson would not do same, right? Even though you yourself only 5 minutes ago said that you don't believe he's doing that, and that being charitable, you actually believe he does care about Rachel and wouldn't treat her that way. So once again, we have a conflict. This is what I mean when I say you're waffling. You make point A, and in 5 minutes, make point, I don't know, F, right? There's either no correlation or there's a direct contradiction. This is why you don't make sense. Why? Because you were trying really hard to intentionally, that's what I should have said, intentionally overcomplicate simple shit. When I said you overcomplicate simple shit, I should have added intentionally as a qualifier so you would understand that I'm meaning that you do it with intent and purpose, right?
That I can agree with. And here's what's so funny.
That's my position. Wait, now your position agrees with me and would say that if you assume consent, it's rapey.
No, listen. It's really funny that you just said that, because this whole conversation about quote unquote marital rape comes from a conversation that began on whatever, right? Where Andrew was talking about waking his wife up with sex, which is literally the example you just gave, right? My question would be then becomes, right?
Not.
Do you not?
Yes, it is. You just said it. Now she can't even keep track of her. You know, maybe it's the drugs. Maybe it's the drugs because she seems inebriated. If you can't keep track of your thoughts 2 minutes at a time, that's a problem, sweetheart. You should look into that. You literally just said that, right? You just said it. Your example was that your husband wakes you up. I won't even go into the details that you just gave, but very nicely putting it, wakes you up wanting sex, right? Which is the example that was given on whatever. I mean, it might have been given in a more crass way, and it might have come out of the mouth of somebody you supposedly hate, but it's the same example.
Waking up with sex, but sure.
Right? Yes, that's
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I imagine, based on what I've seen from Andrew Wilson, sex life. If I'll use myself instead. I have generally told Nick that Nick especially, okay? Nick is very for being woken up with sex. However, say I start waking him up with sex, and then he puts his hand on my head and goes like, no, I'm not feeling good. Okay? That would be him communicating, actually, although I've previously said I like this thing, now that I'm here in this moment, I don't like this thing, right? And then I stop because I'm not rapey. And it doesn't matter that he previously verbally told me that he's into it, right? This is like all how the social interpersonal stuff goes, which is why when people say consent happens at the marital vows, I go, that's a problem, right? Because it implies to people that you're never looking for consent after then. But obviously, probably in the case of Rachel and Andrew, they've probably already talked about being woken up with sex, and they've probably already talked about how they enjoy it, which is fine. But that's actually different than what he's saying, which is consent is just at the marriage vows. It is. It is.
I'm going to show you how. Just if you could give me 2 minutes, please just listen, right? Here's how it's literally no different at all than exactly what you're saying, right? Because this whole thing of assumed consent is the conversation right now, but that was never explicitly said. Basically, it's or forever consent. It's like an assumed consent. That is what I meant to say, right?
Yes, so I understand. Assumed consent, forever consent.
Okay, right. And so when you say these things like, but if, he were to push you away or this or that, like, the logical entailment when you say something like that, and when you just said, but if you know Andrew Wilson, is you're almost stating he would not do that.
I'm literally not doing that at all. I literally walked you through how I assume that they have the exact same interactions that my husband and I have. I'm
right. You said that, and then you make all of these positive claims toward how consent should work when you just said that you think the way he views consent is rapey. I'm not saying that your words were that you think this. I'm saying the logical entailment is. Do you need that defined as well? I mean, I don't get it, but just wait because that's coming.
I'm saying the opposite. You're not listening to me.
No, you're not letting me finish the thought.
Girlfriend, if you think, no, stop. I'm going to mute you if you're going to try to accuse me of making commentary about the rape status of it. Andrew Wilson and Rachel Wilson. That's not happening. I said very explicitly that I suspect that Andrew and Rachel have the same type of situation, right? Where like,
pardon me, she's getting so worked up fighting this straw man that she has constructed. Like, half the things out of her mouth, I'm like, bitch, where did you get that from? Is it the chat? Are you like reading the chat and paying so little attention? You're like conflating their comments with my views. I just don't understand.
I imagine that if they're engaging with one another and the other one shows disinterest, that they'd probably stop because they seem like they probably like each other and would be respectful of each other. This is not the same thing of assuming consent. Because, for example, after I stop having sex with Nick in that like moment, I'm probably going to check in with him again to see if he's actually okay with being woken up with sex. I would probably have that conversation. Assumed consent might say, why would I check in? I only stop if they tell me not to. And it's like, I don't like the relationship standard where I have sex with them unless they explicitly tell me not to. I don't like that. I think that that's a little icky. I think consent is an ongoing process throughout a relationship, even for the same sex acts.
This is where the waffling happens again, because when we were speaking on Andrew Wilson's specific, this one conversation, aka this one part of their marriage, whatever you want to call it, you said that you think the idea of assumed consent is rapey, therefore tying it to their relationship. And then you just said,
Stop. You're doing the thing, you're sliding again, you're equivocating again. There are two things being talked about, because you're saying that my idea about X implies what I think about Y. Even though I've said to you over and over and over and over again, my ideas on X have nothing to do with Y, because I can recognize that somebody can have a different idea on X, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they are doing Y. I am refusing to comment on Y because I have no reason to know anything about the relationship.
Refusing to comment? Bitch, you prattled on for 20 minutes on and off about it. This is the craziness that is these type of people, right? They're like, I'm refusing to comment on it. It being what we've talked about for 40 minutes. Like, are you actually okay, lady? This is so crazy. For you to really like try and virtue signal and like obfuscate the or shift the conversation, let me rephrase, from where I was trying to take it to some rabbit hole you want to fall down is insane to me, right? And listening back to the conversation, what I should have done here is I should have said, you know what? We've gotten our wires crossed, right? My bad. Let me go back to what I was talking about in the very beginning, which is really the only thing I had any interest in talking about at all, which is the idea that generally, which is how it was proposed by your friend Tilly, Andrew Wilson's a rapist, right? That is the claim that she made that I came in to discuss with you. So let's take it back to that. That's what I should have done right there. Sorted it out, stopped this rabbit hole from being dug any further. And I try, I do try like once or twice coming up, you'll see, to kind of get us back on track. And she refuses, but I should not have been like, yeah, okay, but look, back to this. That's not how I should have said it at all. I should have said, listen, this is going completely out of left field. This was never the conversation. You're literally making shit up. You're literally building straw men to fight of shit I never said. I came in, we can replay the video. And what I said was that I wanted to talk about X. You keep bringing up Y and then acting like I brought up Y, and you are clutching your pearls about it. We're not even talking about Y. Stick to X. Let's fucking go. That's how I should have said it. That might have put us on some sort of trajectory back to being on track. I'm not sure.
Relationship between any married couple other than what they tell us publicly. And I'm going to broadly go off of that because it's not really my interest to speculate. You're equivocating. You're trying to blend X and Y together. Yes, you are. You're trying to blend X and Y together. And I'm telling you right now, stop. I'm not doing that.
This is where I say you're overcomplicating simple shit again, right? Because you said
it's not overcomplicated. If you can't keep up with the conversation, it's not overcomplicated. That's not my problem.
Oh, that's sweet. This whole like I'm superior attitude, this whole like allow me to insult your intelligence because perhaps you didn't pick the perfect phrasing, or perhaps because I'm not sitting here with like people to feed me ideas and like the ability to, which I wouldn't have accepted regardless, but whatever, I guess that's how we're different. I don't have the ability to actually sit here and like keep track of my thoughts as easily with say like a pen and paper and etc., right? Because I'm out here trying to not have this type of a conversation be around my children. So I leave the house to run some errands, and perhaps, I got something a little twisted. Perhaps it took me 5 or 6 minutes to realize our conversation had derailed into different territory. And so for that reason, I must be just the biggest dumbass on the planet, right? But it must be convenient for you to believe that over the fact that a lady who's only giving you half of her attention in an hour of her day has so obviously pointed out about 15 holes in your logic. Yeah, it's much easier to swallow the first one, I'm sure.
See, and this is the thing. You try and like
stop meta-litigating. Stop meta-litigating. Just respond to the ideas.
Yes, this is the idea. Your logical entailment when you say.
What does logical entailment mean?
Wilson.
What does that mean?
Again. Why don't you define something for me? Let me give you another shit test. Like, I simply cannot, right? I simply cannot. Unlike, I guess, some of the people you're used to dealing with, ? I'm not even sure if that's the case or if I'm being overly generous, but unlike perhaps people that you regularly do, I don't know. I don't use words I don't understand. And I don't use words that I don't believe make logical, cohesive statements to my reality, basically. Which is why every now and again, because my mind is working 10 times as quick as my mouth, but they try and keep up, I'll be halfway through a sentence and change a word, or even go back and say, let me rephrase, because I want what's coming out of my mouth to not only match what's actually in my head I'm trying to communicate, but also match reality, right? That's a thing.
What happens next from your logic?
I am telling you, you can't assume what happens next.
Oh, did I actually know the word that I just used? Imagine that. That's what, the 4th time we've done this now in this conversation. Are you about happy, or is this just an attack for you? Is this like a way that you can attack someone? I mean, it's pretty cheap. It's pretty gross, if you ask me.
Next, if you assume, that's on you. It sounds like because you agree with my idea of consent, maybe you think that they're doing rape behavior. I'm not commenting on it. Yeah, it seems like you agreed with me about the definition of consent. You would like my idea of consent. My idea of consent is different than what they talk about. Therefore, it sounds like because you believe that your idea about consent necessarily is upstream of what you actually do, then I guess you think that they're rapists. But I definitely don't. I separate X and Y.
I said I agreed, by the way. I said, oh, that makes sense, except I never said I agreed with her premise for consent and the quote unquote correct.
Entirely.
But see, you can try to, maybe I need a soliloquy or something to help you understand, because you can say you're not doing X or Y, but when you have this conversation, right, and the conversation morphs from Andrew Wilson's marriage specifically to, granted, we weren't specifically talking about, well, we were kind of going back and forth, but maybe not specifically him, but any kind of marriage where assent or consent is assumed is rapey. That's what you said. Those were your words, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said this, although we had just tied that conversation. That part of the conversation had moved on from Andrew Wilson's marriage, which you basically were tying these two together, whether you want to admit it or you're trying to run from it.
Well, it seems like you want me to think that they're rapey is what it seems like is happening, because you will, you will not engage with the fact that I am telling you, I think X and Y are different. I'm not really commenting on Y. I'm only commenting on X. And you're saying you must comment on Y. It sounds like this is your problem. Sounds like you're assuming things about them, not me. My whole problem with this Tilly situation in and of itself, right, is that I feel feelings, my feeling is when somebody's private marriage should not be people's business. Okay, like they make it, they're public figures. Okay, like fine, whatever, right? But like you were mentioning a minute ago, like litigating somebody's marriage or marital bed, kind of ridiculous, right? And for someone to do that, and then even if it is what she was doing, which I still don't believe it was, then make an entailment that that person is an actual rapist, to me is wild. And the fact that you are doing nothing but minimizing while still saying, and I'll give you credit for saying, yes, it's wrong, you don't agree with that, you would not. What am I minimizing?
That, what you have said.
What am I minimizing?
Anybody that is upset about what Tilly said, you have minimized about 10.
That's not true. I've said explicitly multiple times in this conversation, I completely understand Andrew and Rachel being upset.
And then went on to say that everybody making a big deal about it online or having any type of feeling about it is wild and crazy.
No, I didn't say that. Right. I said that I think people are overreacting. I think that the harm, like the felt harm is there. And I think the way people are reacting is that it is bigger than it actually is in the substance. Like, I don't think Tilly's comments, for example, are some like Me Too false accusation that needs to be gone to court over. Although I do think it would be upsetting to hear that. And I did.
See, this is the thing. She is equivocating, if you will, right? Because she's comparing her own situations in the past of people publicly speaking out against her for her own shitty behavior, and her relationship and her husband and whatever they get up to. She's equivocating that to the situation that's actually happening now, or did happen, with Tilly's statement, when that's these are apples and oranges, right? Because there's a big difference between someone saying, listen, I have observed or I have evidence to show me that X is true and X is your behavior, right? Concerning a very specific incident that was always described as this incident, right? And this is how I feel about it, right? That's one thing. Then to come over and say, look, I was worried for your safety just because you were sitting by him. In this whole conversation, what I should have done, really, the number one thing I should have done was just suck it up, pay the $3 to get behind her paywall that I could watch the entire conversation before I ever called. Because here I am participating. If I was just me watching or hearing this conversation, I'd be the one like capspurging in the chat, like, get back on track, like, don't let her take you down the rabbit hole. Like, I knew better, and I still allowed myself to kind of be drugged down it, right? What I should have done was watch the conversation so I would know what I know now, which is what we spoke about in depth yesterday, and I made notes on, which is that it was never one time ever mentioned by Tilly, period, the fact that it was related to marriage at all. And in fact, when you, Kyla, brought it up, she basically dismissed it and was like, no. When you gave her another out of like, well, maybe she's speaking on, or maybe you're speaking on platforming, she didn't take that olive branch either, right? So continuing to act like that, regardless, had I actually watched the entirety of that part of the conversation, when she's saying she's trying to drag me down all these different rabbit holes, right? What I should have said was, listen, you can claim that all you want, but anybody who has watched it knows better. Period.com. End of story. So contend with this argument and quit building fucking straw men. End it. End it. Full stop. So that was, that was my bad. It was my bad on my part, because I was still, it was really hard for me to believe during this whole conversation that somebody would be so calculated and so twisted to gaslight me so hard over something they knew for a fact was complete and utter bullshit. That's just what I'll say. It is still hard for me to believe someone could be such a twisted person that they can know in their mind and heart that this part of the conversation literally never happened, never took place, and intentionally misdirect, obfuscate, distract, and gaslight, and try to make me think that I'm the crazy or the dumb one because I don't get the nuance, right? Or because I missed that part of the conversation because that wasn't in the clips, right? It's just crazy.
Offer my soft pushback on the areas that I felt were warranted.
All right.
And I didn't want to get into a debate with Tilly about what Andrew Wilson's perspective on marital rape was, because I don't know it. I didn't know it at the time. I've looked into it since then. But I wasn't going to be like, he doesn't think that, because I had no idea. And she said that she had a clip where they basically said, this is our line of informed consent. And if you think that that line of informed consent is rape, then sure, that's what's happening, right? That's them being like, okay, if you want to water down rape, which essentially he would say, he probably thinks Tilly is watering down the idea of rape too much, which, like, sure, that's just between them. I don't care.
Yeah, I agree. And making
that's fine. That has nothing to do with me or anything that's going on or anything about minimizing. That's fine. You should talk to Tilly about that, not me.
No, agreed. Like I said, my problem was with the whole how you were. Look, we've already went over that. I have one question though for you, just one. You were saying if she thinks that this idea of his is wrong, that how did you? I can't remember exactly how you said it. You were saying if she believes that their idea of informed consent is wrong, that's okay. Am I?
If she thinks, if she disagrees with Andrew Wilson's definition of informed consent, that's okay. Is that what you're saying?
Right. That's what you just said.
Are
right?
you're trying to summarize me?
Yeah. I'm still meaning that part of the conversation. Yeah. Right. That's what you said?
Sort of.
You said it's okay for her to disagree. Basically, that's what you were trying to say, right?
Sort of. I feel like that's not a central thing that I've said, but sure.
Well, you were just saying if she disagreed with his idea of informed consent, right? If that's okay, she could feel that way.
Yeah, of course. Well, but also when she holds him to her standard of rape, then he's a rapist by her standards. I just don't think that that's a good thing to say. I think that's like an unwise thing to say. But I think that's more of like unfortunate. Yeah, but this is more of like a media training issue again.
I don't know. I think it's
when people call me a whore by their standards of what they think a whore is. I think it's like silly to say, and it hurts my feelings a little bit, and I don't like it.
Do you think those have the same implications?
No, of course not. Of course, it's way less severe. It's more severe when people say that I'm cucking Nick. That's way more serious because that implies that I'm doing that I'm sexually stepping out on him and making him walk. That's a way more serious claim. And lots of people have said that about me. And it does upset me.
Nick is more serious than calling someone a rapist?
Wait, what?
Which one did you say was more serious just now? I just want to make sure I understand.
I haven't said anything's more serious. I said cucking is more serious than people calling me a whore. Like it's a more serious insult to call me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant calling Andrew
I know
Wilson
you
racist.
really want those clip moments where you have me saying something bad about the Wilsons. You're just fiending for it. You're desperate.
This woman is so jaded. It's a little bit insane, right? Because for some reason, it's easier for her to believe that somebody is coming in and trying really hard to mash up and clip up the way that she says things to somehow get some type of own than actually trying to have a discussion about the matter, right? Which is crazy to me. It's just insane. And how are you going to accuse someone of that and then at the same time try and pretend that you are in any way good faith in this conversation because you just admitted you're not?
Desperate for it.
What's it like to assume the worst of everyone?
I'm not assuming the worst anymore. The fact that you have asked me multiple direct questions, despite insisting that we can't comment on the marital status, then insisting you weren't asking about the marital status, and now your read of me comparing two insults that are levied at me is to try to maybe get that I'm actually saying that people calling me, saying that I'm cucking Nick is worse than this. So you're obviously engaging with me in like the worst faith possible, that when you misunderstood what I said, you jumped immediately to assuming that I was making some sort of commentary again on the insult levied at Andrew Wilson. It's definitely a pattern. Yes.
Did I ask you nicely? Like, I just want to make sure I understand.
You can very nicely ask me the most bad faith, awful thing, and it doesn't change that you're being bad faith or awful or assuming the worst things about me, right? Like, if you politely ask me something that assumes that I'm like a murderer, it doesn't matter that you were polite. Like, I don't care about the politeness here. I care about the assumptions being made about me.
I get what it is. It's projection, because you are being bad faith and trying to waffle and like build out your way through the conversation.
Where have I waffled?
Like,
where have I waffled? Where have I waffled? Where have I waffled?
I think she's broken. She's starting to she's starting to glitch out a little bit.
And then minimizing everybody that's upset about it, right?
Minimizing isn't waffling. Minimizing isn't waffling.
Yes, it is. It's not
waffling would mean that I'm changing my answer over and over. So where have I waffled?
Does it not get exhausting to have to like go into?
Doesn't it get exhausting to make shit up about people and then insist like weird things and read weird implications into things that nobody's saying when you could just actually take me at my words? Like I try to take other people at their words.
No, you don't. First of all. Second of all, you don't even take yourself at your word because you contradicted yourself about 20 times during this conversation, right? Third of all, keep trying to play up like you are somehow the angel, the superior intellectually and moral character in this conversation, when anyone with eyes, ears, or two brain cells to rub together will see that that's not the case very easily. And fourth of all, why so upset? It's almost as if there's been a nerve hit or something. Weird.
Right, except for you assume the worst and then put words in
I'm not assuming the worst. If I assume the worst, when you said to me, that wasn't me making certain claims, that was other people. And I said, oh, okay, then I guess it wasn't for you. Wouldn't that be me giving you the benefit of the doubt and taking your word on what you'd said rather than insisting that you supply receipts or you must be this person?
When I was making what claims? Are you talking about the beginning of the conversation?
Yeah, when you like first came in.
Sorry, it threw me for a loop there, Kyla, because we're sitting here having a meta conversation about the conversation we were having about the Wilsons and the allegation, and then all of a sudden you throw it back to me in the chat. Like, leave somebody some breadcrumbs next time, right? That's not low IQ or not keeping up with the conversation. That's the fact that you wildly switch where the conversation is at with no warning. And I'm like, hold up, now wait a second, right? And what a wild thing in this entire conversation, right? If you're accusing me of being so bad faith, right? And you of being so great faith, not good faith, great faith, why do you have to go all the way back to the first 2 minutes of our conversation to show me an example? Just saying.
Right, because I mean, I sent like 2 messages. You could easily just check the, channel history.
Sure, and I just believed you. I just was like, okay, I believe you. Isn't that not assuming the worst? Why would I just grant what you're
mean,
saying if I was assuming the worst about you?
I mean, it's easily proven, but I mean, sure, we'll say that
why?
you, like I said,
I didn't ask how provable it was. I said, why, if I was assuming the worst about you, would I just take your word?
I don't know that you did, because see, you keep acting like you're giving me the benefit of the doubt, and then you keep saying
I'm not anymore.
like,
I just want to be super clear. Your benefit of the doubt is over. I am in no way giving you the benefit of the doubt.
Oh no, what will I ever do? Oh, shucks.
Anymore. And in fact, at this point, I'm pretty sure that you're probably part of the Wilson community and you are baiting to try to get certain clips. That's my suspicion. Although, just so it's clear, I don't think Andrew or Rachel ordered you to do so. I think you're just trying to get daddy points with the community. Very quickly, since you...
By the way, I find it really funny, not like haha, but like ironic funny, that you think in a community of people who are conservative, Christian, staunchly independent thinkers and people generally, you think in a community like that, people are going out of their way to do things to quote unquote score points with daddy. That's what you think. You think that is more plausible than perhaps I stumble across your stream and I see you continuing to perpetuate the same bullshit narrative you have been feeding people for a week, and I'm annoyed, so I call in. Like, once again, we're really overcomplicating the simple shit, right? There's not some grand conspiracy. It's just that I saw this happening, and because I am able to take a hard moral stance on things, and because I don't have the spine of a jellyfish, I'm glad to stand up for anyone or anything that I feel is right, right? That's how it happened. And it's interesting that you bring up people, acting simpy for their leaders, because I mean, again, I feel this is another case of projection. I feel like a lot of the insults you've levied at me have in fact been projection. And maybe you feel insecure or some other type of way about your community or yourself or whatever it might be, but projecting those insecurities onto other people doesn't do what you think it does, right? You're not accomplishing what you think you're accomplishing by hurling the insults you are at me, right? Because you see, when you try to minimize and degrade someone, right, or insult them, the way you choose to do it says more about you than it ever does about them. So the things you're choosing to attack me on are very interesting, right? And it goes to show, once again, when Andrew says that your ego is the most important thing to you, that you are the most important thing to you, he is correct.
You keep saying that I'm being bad faith. Define bad faith for me. What does bad faith mean?
Do you really think that everyone that disagrees with you or uses these terms is a complete fucking idiot? Is that your true opinion?
Nope.
You've asked me about...
Hold on. Why would me asking you to define these words and to define where I'm waffling be me thinking you're an idiot? The only way that it would make me think you're an idiot is if you can't answer the questions of things you're accusing me of. So since you couldn't find...
you've shit tested me, what are we at now? 6 times? And I've been able to do it every single time. So you would think at some point, maybe you would be even decent faith and assume I actually know what the fuck I'm talking about. You would assume at some point you would finally arrive at the conclusion that I'm not half as dumb as you think I am, right?
Find a place where I was waffling. Maybe you can find evidence of me being bad faith. Go ahead. Find me. You're not going to do it, are you? Define bad faith.
Bad faith is when you are intentionally coming into a conversation, not granting any premise, not having an open mind to receive information or possibly even change your mind. It's just wanting to have a certain ulterior motives and doing that thing.
Okay, so bad faith is a sustained form of deception, which consists of entertaining or pretending to entertain one set of feelings while acting as if influenced by another. So at the beginning...
it sure seems like that's a dressed up way of what the fuck I just said, Kyla. Like, be so for real right now, right? I literally said bad faith, being bad faith in the conversation, right? I didn't give you a dictionary definition. As I tend to, I gave you a quote unquote layman's definition or a real world exemplified definition of what the word means, right? So instead of telling you it means, Cambridge says it means X, Y, and Z, I said to you, look, when you're bad faith, this is what you will see. You'll see someone enter into a conversation. They're not going to grant premises. They're not going to be open-minded. They're not going to be willing to receive information. They come into the conversation with possibly an ulterior motive, but certainly not the willingness to absorb, learn, or grow. And they're going to stick to that ulterior motive while hiding it. I mean, I don't like to gas myself up or toot my own horn too often, but I think that's a pretty damn good definition of bad faith. Like, generally, I feel anyone could understand that definition, right? So I feel like I did all right there. And instead, here we are back to, can we just contend with the point? And then on top of that, how many examples did I give you of waffling earlier? It was 2 or 3. And you have accused me now 3 or 4 times of not giving you one. Like, is it me who's not keeping up with the conversation here? Because I don't think so.
You got the conversation.
Oh my gosh, you got what I just said?
It's pretty close.
In more simple
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Right?
Yeah, I think you had actually a decent definition. The issue is how was I bad faith? At the beginning, I gave you the benefit of the doubt, which is why, for example, when you insisted that you hadn't said certain things, I just took your word for it. And when you asked me weird questions, I didn't immediately snap down on you. I answered your questions genuinely. And when you insisted that I was waffling or litigating, I just re-explained my ideas. Now I am, and I've told you outright, now I am not engaging with you with good assumptions of you, but I'm not being bad faith because I am telling you directly, I think you're up to no good. I think you're up to no good. I think you're bad faith, actually.
You probably just have these terrible ideas of lots of different groups of people, including Andrew Wilson's fans, I suppose. And you lump me in there and you think that I'm going to take time away from my
Are you
kids on a
open to
Saturday.
changing your mind? Were you ever open to changing your mind?
I'm always
I will try to make a point, and not in my like proudly, overly verbose way. Like, I'll be 6 to 10 words into my point, and she'll just begin to talk over me, right? This is, like I said before, trying to be good faith, trying to actually bring something to the conversation. And trust me, it took it out of me to do it once or twice, but I was keeping my cool and being ultra respectful so that we could have the conversation. I mean, we're on her platform, etc. And instead, what I get is, ran over. I really should have just said, like, look, don't run. Let's discuss this issue, or fuck it and I'll hang up. Instead of, I feel like for future reference, for future conversations, Lord forbid, I'll tell you right now, I will never, ever entertain such a pointless conversation for an hour again in my life. I'll tell you that much right now, because that's an hour I'll never get back, right? But in any type of, whether it's a debate, whether it's a conversation, in any type of format where someone is trying their hardest to grab you from all sides and pull you down different rabbit holes so that they are not forced to confront the actual point that you've made, 2 things. 1, you're wasting your time. If you can't get them back on track, you'll get nowhere. So either abandon the conversation or redirect. And 2, you're hitting a weak point in their worldview, in their argument, somewhere in their character, wherever it may be. You're hitting a weak point, or they would not be obfuscating and distracting from the point that you're making, and they would just simply contend with it, right? Simple.
So then why is it the case when I outlined to you over and over and over again that I felt differently about X and Y? Why did you insist that I actually didn't, and that X and Y were the same, that I was connecting these two? Why did you keep saying that? Yes, you did. You kept saying, if I think that assumed consent is rapey, then I must also think that Andrew Wilson is doing rape. And I said, no, I don't. And you kept insisting upon this. Why did you keep insisting upon this? Why did you do that? Why did you insist on that? No matter how many times I explained to you that that's not happening. Why were you insisting on that?
No, I didn't insist on
yes,
that.
You did. Yes, you did. You consistently said you must view it this way. You must view it this way.
No,
and then you kept on trying to get me to comment on the relationship.
Right. Just keep talking over me and turning my volume down, and surely that'll make you seem more right. In fact, anyone who is observing this conversation, which I'm sure you wanted to make near impossible, which is why you put all the lives that you do behind a paywall, right? Because a lot of people are so morally opposed to you, your platform, the things you argue for, that they will not give you even $3 to get behind the paywall, right? And pained as I was to do it, I wanted to review this conversation because I have to tell you, you are a very talented manipulator. And it's not a compliment, but it's the truth, right? You are, in fact, so talented that even for someone who knows better, who's been in narcissistic relationships, and I don't mean like, because everyone's a narcissist these days. I mean like an actual textbook narcissistic abuser, very bad news bears type of relationship, and just some shitty friendships along the way. Like I know what it's like to be manipulated. We'll just say that, right? Even as someone who has the requisite knowledge and the real life experience to spot someone being manipulative, even knowing that you were in this entire conversation being manipulative, you still had me questioning by the end about 2% of me. If I was wrong, if I had somehow come across as pushy or trying to push or lead you into this one direction, this one corner or rabbit hole, so I could get quote unquote clips of you saying this quote unquote thing that I posited you must believe, quote unquote, whatever. And now I've reviewed it now twice on my own and here now outside of the conversation. And I waited a week or more to do so, kind of, trying to approach it freshly, so to speak. And I can tell you, I'm sure you haven't reviewed it at all. This is my third time in this conversation, basically. And I can confidently 120% at this point say, never did I try to lead you down any particular path so that I could clip you or otherwise, right? The only thing I did try to nudge you or, like I said, hold your feet to the fire about was the general idea of Andrew's character and his the fact, obviously it's not, that he's, according to Tilly, a rapist, quote unquote, right? Because we were having this meta conversation about the conversation and how you're saying, she should have, would have, could have. And you're doing all this justification for something you admit yourself, is untrue from someone who you've said yourself has treated you nothing but respectfully, kindly, etc. And you are continuously defending this other person that you claim to have absolutely no connection to, involvement with, or bias toward, right? Supposedly. And you are continuously defending their shitty words and actions. So I'm thinking in my mind, that's for one of two reasons, right? It's either because at this point, you have to dig in your heels a little deeper because you've already defended it, right? You already in the moment had the spine of a jellyfish. So you've got to, at some level, stick beside her, or you're going to look like a total and complete idiot and clown. So, basically to save face, right, is the first option. Or the second option is you truly believe that he's a rapist. So what I was trying to do by asking you those 3 times I had to ask you to just get a yes or no answer, do you think Andrew Wilson is a rapist? I was trying to determine which of these paths you were on, because determining that path would direct my next questions and concerns toward the events of Tilly being on your show and making that accusation, right? Because if you are just wanting to keep your head in the sand and hold your ground because it's done now, right? That's one thing. My questions, my critiques, if you will be totally different than if you truly believe that he's a rapist and that's why there was no real pushback or consequence from your end, right? Those are two very different arguments. That's one big reason, but also you just kept defending it and kept pushing it. And I'm like, I mean, do you just agree? And I just wanted to make it clear, like, let's just be clear. And it took me 3 times of asking to even get there. So for you to imply or straight up say, I'm trying to lead you down this path to get this specific answer, it's not that I wanted a specific answer. I wanted a straight answer. That's all. I just wanted a yes or a no. And you're acting like that's somehow nefarious. It's crazy.
Relationship. Why did you do that? When I told you multiple times, I don't want to comment on the relationship because I'm not in their relationship. Why did you keep trying to press me for commentary on their marriage? Why did you do that?
Okay, I see why you think I'm like flip farming you. You think I'm trying to drag out of you some certain phrase about their marriage, generally, or the rapiness. That's not at all what I was trying to do.
Then why did you keep on pressing me about making a comment on their marriage? Why did you keep asking me about it, despite me telling you over and over and over again, I can't?
Well, see, I have actually tried 3 or 4 different times to make a point that you completely cut me off from. Because when I was saying earlier, the logic entailment of this is this, right? I was going somewhere with that and you cut me off. And then we've had to like meta and, completely relitigate that whole part of the conversation out like 2 or 3 different times. Because instead of just maybe, giving me a simple answer or even like perhaps or something that could not be clipped. If you're assuming the worst, fine. Say something simple that you would never think could be clipped by anyone. That's fine. I'm not asking you to give me a specific phrase. I was asking you about, I don't even remember where we were going with that particular line of questioning with the logical entailment of A and B now because it's fucking 20 minutes ago.
Sure.
But I was going somewhere with it, right? And when I asked you, do you think Andrew Wilson is a rapist? I didn't ask you, do you think he's a rapist in his marital bed? Because the entire conversation leading up to that
was about marital rape? Was about marital rape and specifically Tilly's comments about it?
No. You're misremembering the
I am not misremembering. The entire conversation has been about marital rape. It has been about Andrew Wilson's opinion on marital rape and Tilly's commentary on it. It has been about marital rape the whole time.
No, it hasn't. You crazy coo. No, it absolutely has not. The fact that you are trying to post hoc reframe it is wild, right? I'm wondering, after seeing the response from Tilly, if you didn't have a part in that, because watching that video, a lot of the same obfuscation, a lot of the same gaslighting and minimizing techniques that I see from you right now, I see from her in that video. And I'm certainly not a mind reader or a fortune teller or some kind of psychic. But if I was a betting woman, I would bet you had at least one of your grubby little paws in that statement. Just saying.
So you randomly being like, oh, when I asked you whether Andrew Wilson was a rapist, it actually had nothing to do with marital rape. It was just like this general question.
Literally, you.
Okay.
No, it was a very specific question about the general rapiness, not in his marriage, of Andrew Wilson.
How the fuck would I ever begin to know about Andrew Wilson's rape status of his entire life? How would I even begin to know about that if I won't even comment about marital rape? Why would you ask me that? Why would you ask me that when I had at that point already said to you, I'm not willing to comment on his marital, like I don't know. I don't know about their marital bed. It's not really my business.
At that point, I wasn't talking about their marriage. You're not listening.
We started and have been talking about their marriage the whole time.
No.
Yes.
No, let me explain. No. Let me talk for 1 minute and I'll show you why. When I first was telling you, like, this is why I think it's wrong, right? You can't go on the live stream and just say, he's a rapist. You can't do that because what did I say? I said, I can't even, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say I watched the entire live stream. I watched this much. Mm-hmm. This is what I saw. Mm-hmm. I can imagine people who only saw 30-second clips or a minute-long clips only saw this. And if I, in an 8-minute clip, didn't see any context of marriage, neither did they. So to whoever is viewing that clip.
Wait, the video.
Gosh, what? You're repeating the same point that you made 3 times in this conversation, and I'm so busy with my head up my own ass that I never heard you once. What? Oh my God. Where did this point come from that you've repeated 3 or 4 times? Oh my God. I can't.
Oh, Tilly is talking about is specifically about marriage. She directly references it.
Right. Right.
Bitch, where? Let's bring the meme back. Bitch, where? Because you know what I did? Yesterday on my live stream, I went through that entire part of the conversation. Now, I didn't go through the entire live because honestly, it's like nails on a chalkboard to hear y'all go back and forth about trying to out-liberal each other. It's fucking insanity. But I, myself, watched it in the background already once. And I, timestamped the part where you guys were talking about Andrew Wilson, which was about a 38-minute, I believe, I have it written down, portion of that like 3-hour long live stream, right? And so I played the entirety of that 38 minutes or whatever it was on my live stream yesterday. And I literally went through and typed out during her one part of her statement, as a matter of fact, hold up, wait a minute, because it's not far away. Hold on. We're about to just miss, this is exactly what Tilly was talking about. She mentioned it. Let's go to the transcript. Just one moment. What I was about to say is that I went through and methodically transcribed myself. I used to be a transcriptionist, by the way, so I'm not just some, I'm a bit of a, knowledgeable person when it comes to transcribing. I went through and I transcribed that part of the conversation, right? Give me 1 second here. I'm over here in the Gmail. Aha. All right. And now let me go back to the Streamlab because I really honestly forgot that she this vehemently gaslit the shit out of me. So just, and if you were there yesterday, you already know, but we're gonna show it again. Ooh, and then I could just save it. Oh, that's an interesting thing. It's just wild to me that we are really gonna gaslight people to think don't believe your lying ears, right? Don't believe your lying ears. Even if you know better and you heard and saw better, don't believe that. All right. We're about to bring it up here. I doubt we're going to get to the response right this second, which is like, annoying because I really wanted to do that, but why is it not? I'm so sorry. I know this is like a huge pain in the bootete here. But I should have just saved this already and then that would have been a thing. Unprofessional. I really wasn't expecting to, Come on now. Where in the world? Why can I not? It's like I cannot. Okay, you know what we're going to do? Just 1 second. I'm going to do this. Here we go. All right. I'm so sorry that took me. Look, I'd love to think that I'm a perfect professional, but I'm still learning, okay? Now, this is what we went over yesterday, which is a transcription. And not only did I present this, but we literally watched the video and then I showed this. So these are without a doubt, unequivocally, undeniably her words. Tilly's, okay? This is some of the notes that I went through. So, notes. Here we are. She doesn't agree with her sitting down with Andrew Wilson. And this is why. Okay, this is where the whole conversation truly begins, right? This is why. I just worry immediately for your safety in that moment because I know you've debated with him. There's people watching that like him, but it's just, he's a rapist. Andrew Wilson is a rapist. There's my thoughts is wild. I mean, he's admitted on live streams before on his podcast. He doesn't really believe in what he believes the modern version of consent to look like. And his entire career is built upon the foundational premise that you get clicks for bullying underage girls or women who are underqualified to speak about political topics. I don't mean you. I don't think that's you at all. Actually, I think that he went out on a limb when he debated you, as that isn't the type of person he would normally engage with. As if you're the cream of the crop when it comes to the people who he's conversated with. But okay, neither here nor there. Where's the marriage aspect of that at all? At all, right? Because here's the thing. There's people that watching that like him, but it's just, he's a rapist. He's admitted on live streams he doesn't believe in what he believes the modern version of consent to look like. And like I said yesterday, you might be able to make an argument for that little part of the sentence, but anybody who's actually watched, including you, I'm sure, Miss Thang, any number of his whatever appearances would also know that he's had conversation about things like, college kids getting drunk and having sex, and how according to most liberals, that would be like a double grape, which is insane. So these are the modern versions of consent I'm thinking about when she mentions that, right? It's not that my mind goes straight to his marriage, right? Because why would someone accuse, I mean, do we not understand that when he did that whole bit and like Rachel even called in, like that was a joke. We understand that, right? Not that he doesn't perhaps act a certain way in his own marriage, which is his business, but like a bit of a troll it was. And instead, it's like the black ex-wife thing that you also believed because you're so intelligent, right? It's like that. Oh, I just simply cannot. And then we get to her next statement. I so wish I would have actually watched and transcribed this before I called in, because I would have had a list of questions just for you. But like, I think that's for the men. Andrew Wilson is for the men to tackle. So your friend is sexist too. I mean, I've watched probably 20 hours or more of his podcast, which, if you don't know, she's speaking about the Whatever podcast, which is Brian's podcast, but whatever. And I've just said no, because I don't think there's any winning. And that's, yeah, So I'd want you to speak to your experience of that because I was frankly not going to go sit in a room. Listen, I was not going to go sit in a room with a bunch of men who don't believe in consent. I was spooked. And that's another question I never got to answer because when she phrases it like this, it also sounds like she's kind of accusing, um, she would kind of be accusing Brian and maybe even the other guys that are there of being the same thing, even though she only names him. Then she goes on to literally say she doesn't want to sit with a bunch of men who don't believe in consent, right? I mean, I've already defined a logical entailment for you so you understand, Kyla. So do you understand how the logical entailment of that would be that they would also be rapists? Or is this another one of those things you're going to completely pretend I'm like wild for associating? I just simply cannot. I simply cannot. We're almost to the part where she rage quits, which is kind of funny. Of course. And you speak to the entire internet all the time. I'm not gonna say daily because it's not like you do a show 7 days a week, but at least semi-weekly, right? So what? What does me knowing you have to do with anything? Whether you know me or not, I'm a stranger or a bestie, I can still show you the fault in your logic. Like, what? We weren't talking. No, no, no. What I should have said is, no, I don't agree, and this is why. Because I say yes, I feel like just to shut her up so I can actually talk for a second. And then I literally go on to tell her why I disagree. So what I meant to say is, no, I don't agree, and this is why. Wow, because I condensed what you said to the meaning of it. So let me get this straight. You are allowed to post hoc add words and add extra context to things. And you think that not only is acceptable or reasonable, but that it also, in the continuum of like this thing holding its merit and staying the same, unchanged statement is still reasonable, even though you add all this extra post hoc context. But I can't reduce your statement to fewer words that have the same logical meaning without being bad faith. So you can add shit that never appeared and be good faith, but I can't basically boil down and straw man your position trying to present good faith without being bad faith myself. Like, how does any of this shit make sense to you, Kyla? Yes, you did. Oh, that's sweet. Wouldn't that be convenient for you if that was the case? That I'm just so dumb, I can't keep up. When in reality, what it is, not all of us do a whole lot of drugs to keep us really focused on things, right? Not all of us do that. And so sometimes our minds wander and we get a little distracted. And while we're having this conversation, I, being the family lady that I am running all kinds of errands and I'm listening to you. But perhaps, like had I been at home with a pad and paper, that phrase you used, I would have written down word for word so that I could harken back to it and you couldn't gaslight me like you've done this entire conversation, right? Which, again, that's my fault. It's been a learning experience for me, trust and believe. But you said over and over again, you understand why some people are upset. However, it's not as big of a deal as they're making it out to be. So, what I just said was, you understand, but it's not that big of a deal, right? What you said, now hearing it back again, is it's not as big of a deal as they're making it out to be. And these are the types of things you're choosing to get hung up on, right? Me missing 3 or 4 words that add no real context or meaning to the phrase at all. These are the types of rabbit holes you want to drag people down, right? To distract and obfuscate from the good points that they're making. And it's not even like semantics, right? It's not definitions or clarification for the sake of non-equivocation. It's just it's not even sophistry. It's just petty, petty prattle for no reason that serves it's petty, purposeless prattle. That's exactly what it is. It's petty and it's purposeless and it's just you running your mouth to take up space in the room so that my voice can't be heard with a very logical point that I'm making. Says the woman who claims to not even understand that the exact entire point I was making when we began talking was the fact that you're adding this post hoc justification that no one else or very few people, possibly only ones that follow you, ironically enough, would see the relationship in, for one, and for two, and I never even got to make this point because you ran your fucking mouth the whole time and talked over me. But number two, wouldn't matter in a legal context anyway, right? If you were to hypothetically go to court for some such thing as this accusation. No judge here, UK, anywhere in the world, promise you, is going to hear your argument of, well, this is what she meant. No matter how many clips she puts together or tries to frame, no one is going to take that clip of her saying and never once mentioning marriage ever that he is a rapist, period, to mean in his marriage, period. I mean, nobody's going to take it that way. You can try and post hoc justify. That was literally my entire point, which you understood at the time because your argument against that very point was, no, you're not even arguing she shouldn't say it. You're arguing she needs better media training. And my argument to that was like, no, absolutely not. Media training or not, you shouldn't be so daft, not dumb, daft to do such a thing unless, and what was my argument? Sure, you don't remember. I'll tell you, unless you're intentionally trying to hurt someone, harm their reputation, destroy their life, which is what things like this do. You notice that she turned me down and muted me, right? I was like, oh, now hold on a minute. And I was to the point of going for the jugular at that moment because I'm like, bitch, you did not, right? But of course she turns me down and mutes me. Like, how nice, right? The whole time, her chat, if anybody's been paying attention, has been like, kicker, this is done, blah, 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 right? For the life of me, and then also, by the way, we're going to add hom now. Oh, we're going to do personal attacks now. And every single person that's in a conversation with any person that says anything about you that isn't kissing your ass, basically, right? And now you're going to come at me and say that I'm dropping my kids off, feeding them Tide Pods and eating Tide Pods. That's about the most immature, nonsensical, fucking retarded thing I think anybody's ever said to me that is claiming to want to have an intelligent dialogue. Absolutely insane. Okay? That's just first. And secondly, this shows how much you literally at all never have paid attention during the entire conversation, right? I explained in the chat before I came in, I said when I first entered the conversation, my kids are at home, I'm running errands. I'm dropping them off at home? No, I know this is a wild concept for people like you, but I'm with the father of my children, my hubby, right? I'm with him. We share a home, the two of us and our two children as a family. And when I need to run errands and it's the weekend, I don't have to find a babysitter or do a bunch of work and drama. I just leave them with their father and go do what I need to do. And for some odd reason, I thought something could come of wasting an hour trying to have a dialogue with you. And I'm not sure why, because see, I've watched a lot of these conversations in the past, and I've thought to myself, like, oh man, like that must be really frustrating. But perhaps if we were to just, if you were to have said this or done this, not in some kind of conceited way, like I think I'm in any way better or smarter in any type of arena, conversation, any of it, than any of the people I've seen her speak with, just more in the sense of like the way you run kind of, hypotheticals, if you will, in your own mind, right? One thing I've always said, Andrew in particular, also Jay Dyer, have the patience of a saint. Because the circles I've seen you try to run them around in, this conversation has nothing on that. But it was every bit as frustrating as I would have imagined and more. I should have prepared better, which is my fault. I heard the particular back and forth you were having with some of the people in your chat, and it just so happened to light a fire under me at that exact moment for whatever reason. And I don't even think you were particularly talking about Andrew at that moment in time. I should just go back and see, but I'm not gonna spend any more time on it today. I have spent more than enough time reviewing this conversation. I would, however, like to say, to close it out here, that according to Andrew and many others, a rage quit is an automatic L. So, and I mean, I also tend to agree. So here we are in this really dumb, stupid lady, fucking stupid, according to you, who can't keep up, who can't follow the conversation, who's required to define 5 different words for you to keep up, who, just for some odd reason, you believe is feeding her children Tide Pods and dropping them off with Lord knows who. Sure seems to have gotten you very worked up and enough to rage quit over what? But I will concede that at that point, I don't know where the conversation goes. I think even another reasonable request at that point would have been, you know what? Why don't we take a beat? And not that he would have ever responded afterwards. And let me rewatch the beginning of this conversation, right? Or asked you, I know you've got several screens in front of you. Why don't you pull up the beginning of the conversation, right? Because at that point, you're either going to have to completely refuse, which already shows bad faith and shows that you're fucking wrong, or you're going to have to do it and find a way to try and dig more holes and tie yourself into more knots, as I'm being proven right in front of you. Maybe I should have done that. Certainly, I feel asking for, if there is proof, say a video of said conversation, or an audio, or a moment in a live stream, a comment, whatever it might be, in dealing with these types of people, if you have that proof, demand to review it, even together with that person. Because I have learned, not just in this conversation, but it has really cemented it in my mind. So thanks for that, Kyla. I have learned these types of people will argue into a wet paper bag and not be able to find their way out with how twisted they twist themselves up. However, most of the time, they will refuse to even go toward the evidence, because it's obviously evidence that proves them wrong, correct? And when presented with actual arguments, they will run away and pull you a different direction, down a different rabbit hole, so that they don't have to contend with that argument. So that's another thing I've learned from this conversation. Demand the evidence, demand to stay on topic, demand that my point, not my tone, not whatever you think I mean or my intentions could be, the actual argument that I'm making, demand that be addressed, because apparently you were just never going to do it on your own, right? So yeah, I have learned and relearned a great many things during this conversation. Definitely have no desire to repeat it. Rather frustrating. And if I want to spend an hour chasing my tail and getting absolutely nothing done, I feel like I don't need to have a conversation with you to do it. But hopefully, maybe somebody can glean something from this, whether it's a tactic to put forth documentation, whether it's some type of proof to the contrary of the lies that you're spewing, or even if it's just a bit of entertainment. Hopefully somebody gets more out of it than I did, because what I got was a headache. And I'm actually completely serious. I had to come home and take 2 goody powders. My head hurt so bad by the time I was done having this conversation. Not because of the big brain energy, but because of the big pretzel energy. I mean, just the knots you tied yourself into trying to justify something that makes no sense is crazy. And thank y'all I see there's at least a couple people who have been hanging out the whole time. I so appreciate you. Y'all are great. Hope you have enjoyed. The rage quit was something else. Pardon me. I'm very allergic to life right now, so you'll have to excuse me. So is that. It's so mad about it. The taters here. It's just so funny to me. Like, you can tell she's big time mad. Big time mad. And for what? Like, I was trying to say, like, listen, it's not like I'm sitting here cussing you, acting crazy, right? Like, it's like you can be bad faith without ever cussing and da da da. Well, yeah, you could. You're right. You absolutely can. But like, demonstrate how I've done that. And the only the only demonstration she can give is you demanded I answer a question. Like, you're trying to clip farm. Like, what do you mean? Been working and able to watch, but listening. Don't know if I caught the last of Kyla. She's wild. I'm telling you what. Yeah, she rage quit. The very last thing that she said was, I was trying to interject, and I was like, now wait just a minute. And I was gonna give her lunch money because at this point she's talking about my kids, tell me I feed them Tide Pods and drop them off on the week. Like, should done. That's the one way you can get to me is talk about my kids. So I was like, wait a minute. And of course she turned me down. She didn't just mute me because I was mid-sentence, and you would have been able to tell that she muted me. But instead, she turned me down and then muted me. I could tell that's what she was doing as I rewatch it. But she turned me down, she muted me, and she said, she finished her statement rather. She's like, I should have said you drop your kids off, you feed them Tide Pods. And so I was like, now you wait just a minute. And she turned me down. She said, and you eat Tide Pods yourself. Thanks. Have a great day. And muted me or kicked me or whatever she did. I don't even recall. And I'm like, wow, that's a rage quit if I've ever seen one. And I mean, I think that, I don't know. It really wasn't too productive of a conversation other than showing anyone with sense and a brain to use how completely full of shit she is. Like, I really don't know how anybody could view that conversation as anything but the mental gymnastics that liberals are known for at this point, And but yeah, we're going to end it here. I do believe I really want to do a reaction to the response. We'll see what's up. If the kiddos are going to have some quiet time when they get home from school or whatnot, because I'm telling you what, the reaction or the response is also wild, absolutely wild. Thank you, Tater, for hanging out with me. I so appreciate you. And thanks if anybody else is still here with us and paying any amount of attention. And if you watch afterward, I hope if nothing else, you get a good giggle. It will all be worth it if we could just get a giggle. Y'all have a great day, all right? Until I see you next time, remember to take care of yourselves and each other. Okay, bye.